the afternoon. That's when it will all commence. Americans take to the polls. Both presidential candidates have been making last-minute attempts to win over voters, especially those undecided voters. All the screens will be dominated by that reportage and coverage of the American election, America's Choice 2024. Will Donald Trump get the nod from the American electorate to quote-unquote make America great again, or will Kamala Harris get to quote-unquote turn the page on what has been happening over the last few years? Certainly, that's how she has framed her campaign, that it's time to turn the page on all the drama and the chaos that she says is associated with Donald Trump and the possibility of a Trump White House once again. It's been a bruising campaign, and I would say it's relevant to all of us, especially given that not only is the United States a big trade and development partner for us here in South Africa, but also across the African continent, but the reality is it remains a key broker in international affairs. Contested, of course, no doubt about that, that in a world where we are seeing world, there's a lot of contestation of the hegemony, to use the phrases that are used in international relations, of the hegemony of the United States, but it does remain quite an important broker on international affairs from all issues. I mean, issues from climate action, climate change, to conflicts that are raging in parts of the world, including the Middle East. What kind of a United States, what kind of a White House will we have as a broker on these issues, on which stage South Africa is a significant player? So we'll give you a bit of coverage of that. We'll be in conversation with the SABC News correspondent in the United States, Sharon Bryce Peace, over the next few minutes, who will give us a sense of what election day in the United States actually feels, looks and sounds like. But back home, in the second hour of the show, we'll start off the second hour with a focus on the report that has come back from the Department of Education in Gauteng that has to do with the allegations of racism at the Pretoria High School for Girls. That school has been right in the eye of the storm of allegations of racism, discrimination, and even bullying of some pupils. These first came to light, you will remember, following the revelation of a WhatsApp group that included some 12 white learners, and that was back in July. What followed were internal investigations which cleared both the 12 pupils and the school principal and deputy of any misconduct. Well, the Department of Education in Gauteng then commissioned its own independent report, and yesterday that report, that panel, that investigation reported back, highlighting some unsettling findings, shall we call it that, unsettling findings and observations. And key among those that talk perhaps to the culture at the school or don't. These include a finding that says some white teachers at Pretoria High School for Girls, get this, do not greet their fellow black colleagues, quote, because they do not know whether they are cleaners or educators at the school, end quote. So that's just part of talking to the kind of culture that this investigation says they found at Pretoria High School for Girls. We'll have a discussion on that, and that's coming up in the second hour, but we'll then tie it up with notions of social cohesion in South Africa and examine to what extent these incidences that happen from time to time, the issues playing themselves out at Stellenbosch University around Velgenhof, for example, to what extent do they talk to the extent to which we've been able to grapple with issues of social cohesion. That conversation will dominate in the second hour of the show. Of course, we have all of your regulars lined up for you on this Tuesday morning. Ondela Mbana with your news updates every half hour. We have Rob Byrne covering your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning. Dauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. And of course, Sipho Mantula with your Africa update, and that will be coming up just before 8 a.m. at about 7:45 on the show. But of course, we're taking your calls throughout the morning, and the number to dial for that on these issues and others, on all the issues we raise on the show and others that are exercising your mind, that number is 086 000 2032. We'll also take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM, Conversations That Move Us. The first hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
India plan to cause an upset in Mzansi's own backyard. However, the Proteas are all about hitting the ground running at St. George's Oval to demonstrate what the Protea fire looks like. What a summer without cricket! Catch the spectacular second T20 international match between South Africa and India on Sunday 10 November at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and 4 p.m. on Radio 2000. With reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Yeah, for that, let's say good morning to Ondela Mbana. Good morning to you, Ondela. What's dominating? Is it the United States election? But I do imagine that you also have a packed diary, even domestically.
Definitely the U.S. ballots casting by Americans today. And we're also starting our day in courts here in South Africa on the DA's bid on dual citizenship rights. Constitutional Court will this morning hear the DA's bid for the confirmation of the order of the Supreme Court of Appeal that South Africans who lost their citizenship after acquiring another nationality remained the country's citizens. The hearing will follow the DA's challenge, which will be held virtually, of the constitutionality of a section of the Citizenship Act. And the section stipulates that South Africans may lose their citizenship upon voluntary and formal acquisition of the citizenship of another country. And we move to my home province, the Eastern Cape. I love rain, Thulasizwe, but when it's this much, it's damaging roads, homes. Yes. As a result, the South African Weather Service has issued a warning for disruptive rains in the Eastern Cape today. There's been a significant increase of rainfall between midnight and this morning. Some places are expected to record between 40 and 70 millimeters of rain, but the forecaster says the eastern part of the Port Alfred is expected to get more significant rainfall than the rest of the province. And we move to Cape Town in the Mark Liffman case. Two suspects who were arrested in connection with his murder are expected to appear in the George Magistrate Court today. Liffman was gunned down yesterday at the Garden Route Mall in George on Sunday, a day before he was scheduled to appear in the High Court in Cape Town. We now move to the U.S. It's a big day in the U.S. and it's one of the tightest presidential elections campaign in U.S. history. It is drawing to a close with over 160 million voters expected to cast their votes. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are making a final push in key swing states, with millions of votes have already been cast, but with opinion polls deadlocked, both candidates are still trying to persuade undecided Americans to vote today, and that is definitely a story that we'll be bringing throughout the day. News headlines are coming up at 6:30.
All right, thank you for that, Ondela. I do feel for our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce Peace in the United States. He and other colleagues will have a very busy day today with the election happening in the United States.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So you heard there from Ondela that we have these warnings that have come through from the South African Weather Service. So I propose, given the number of warnings, that I will just do the warnings and then I'll give you temperatures for the rest of the cities, because indeed the warnings are going to dominate what the weather looks like in any case. So let's start with those warnings. We'll start with the impact-based warnings. This is based on what the Weather Service estimates will be the impact of that weather system on communities. The first one is a yellow warning. It says disruptive rain leading to flooding of settlements, roads, damage to property is expected in places over the eastern parts of the Eastern Cape as well as the southeastern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. The second warning is orange warning. It says disruptive rain leading to flooding of settlements, roads, damage to property is expected over the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality of the Eastern Cape. And we have a yellow warning that says disruptive snow leading to localized traffic disruptions and localized loss of livestock is expected over the northern and central high-lying areas of the Eastern Cape. And then we have a yellow warning that says severe thunderstorms resulting in damage or loss of infrastructure, settlements and major travel disruptions and disruptions of municipal and other essential services is expected over the Highveld. They are expected over the Highveld of Mpumalanga. And lastly, we have a yellow warning that says damaging winds resulting in disruption of coastal activities are expected between Port Edward and Kosi Bay from late afternoon. Then we have a fire danger warning that says extremely high fire danger conditions are expected over the Limpopo Valley, Bushveld and south central parts in Limpopo, as well as the extreme eastern parts of the Northwest Province. Your temperatures then: Pretoria 18 to 33, Johannesburg 18 to 29, Mbombela 18 to 25, Polokwane 18 to 28, Mahikeng 17 to 31, Bloemfontein 6 to 22, Kimberley will be 6 to 20, Cape Town 13 to 20, George will be 9 to 17, Gqeberha 12 to 16, East London 12 to 16, Durban 15 to 19, and Richards Bay 16 to 21, and Pietermaritzburg 9 to 17.
For credible and comprehensive coverage of South Africa's fast-moving mining industry and the people shaping it, click through to Creamer Media's Mining Weekly. From policy and innovation to market-moving trends, Creamer Media's Mining Weekly keeps your finger on the resources pulse. For even deeper insight, subscribe to our New Look Weekly magazine, out every Friday, together with engineering news. Creamer Media's Mining Weekly. Current, credible, comprehensive.
Festive season is around the corner. Tell hooray! And like most, Paul, I don't sweat going home because I have a Nedbank Just Invest account. So I'll be up this festive season. No borrowing, guys. Even you, Mr. Voiceman.
Must be nice to be you, Mabel. Mara, you can also be like Mabel and earn up to 8.5% interest. Open yours via the Money app in under 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply. Visit nedbank.co.za for more info. 16 teams of Mzansi Africa's Elite League are back to the battlefield. Ramanda Masha. They all believe Utukusoba right, Kuma bright, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fagukesi. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Thulasizwe Mzansi. The Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. World View Update. Spotlight, bringing you closer to international or global news.
Yes, so the U.S. election is one of those stories on which I would want to hear your views. Remember to send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061-410-4107. And of course, a bit later on, we will take your calls, just your take on what your expectations are as the election unfolds. With voting set to officially commence in the United States this morning, their time, so it will be afternoon our time, both presidential candidates have been making last-minute attempts to win voters over. Kamala Harris spent Monday in Pennsylvania, whose 19 electoral college votes offer the largest prize among the states expected to determine the electoral college outcome. Her Republican counterpart, Donald Trump, began his 4 rallies across 3 states by addressing a crowd in Raleigh, North Carolina. For more on this, I'm joined now by Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who is the SABC News correspondent in New York. Good morning to you, Sherwin. I see that the last-minute speeches are about to be delivered. CNN on standby now to hear from Kamala Harris, and that is taking place in Philadelphia. So it's ahead of Election Day in America, an expression we will hear a bit of today. But practically, what does that look like? What does it look, sound, and feel like on Election Day in America?
Well, it's all systems go for every campaign, all the major campaigns, including the front-running campaigns of Republican Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee. You correctly point out that thousands have gathered in Philadelphia for Kamala Harris's final rally speech this evening. That will, be the cherry on the cake of a really, 4-month campaign after Joe Biden's seismic decision to step out of this race. This will be the culmination of a multi-year effort by Donald Trump to regain the White House, and he will speak later in Michigan, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So essentially the campaigns are ongoing. Thulasizwe, they are likely to speak into Election Day, given the fact that these rallies have not heard from the principals tonight. Kamala Harris just arriving at this Philadelphia rally. We understand that Oprah Winfrey will be making an appearance there. Lady Gaga will be showing up, Katy Perry, so there'll be some music performances. So really every effort being made by both campaigns to end the campaign season here on a high, given the stakes in this election.
And it's no coincidence, is it, Sherwin, that they will both end their campaigns respectively in Pennsylvania and for Donald Trump in Michigan. There's a reason for that.
Absolutely. The U.S. elections, Thulasizwe, as we've talked about before, are not about winning the national vote. Kamala Harris, in multiple polls, is shown to be leading Donald Trump between 2 and 5% nationally, or tied in some of the polling. But it matters not who wins the popular vote. It's all about the Electoral College. And because the Electoral College is divided up into all 50 states, you know what Democratic candidates, which Democratic strongholds Kamala Harris is going to win. You also know which Republican strongholds Donald Trump is going to win. And that only gets them to so many Electoral College votes. You need to get 270 Electoral College votes. And for that to happen, you have to build on your traditional strongholds and include some of those purple states, the states that sometimes go blue and sometimes go red, your Wisconsins, your Michigans, your Pennsylvanias, and the like. And those states, you need to collect as many of those as possible to get over 270, and that's why you see them in places like Pennsylvania. I think the internal polling data is showing both the Trump campaign and the Harris campaign that it must win Pennsylvania. Both this is kind of the diamond in the crown for both campaigns, and that's why you're seeing them spend such an expansive and extensive amount of time there.
Yeah, I heard even the amount of money that has been poured into campaigning in Pennsylvania has been mind-blowing. Sherwin, there's been so much mudslinging between the two campaigns. Let's take a step back. What are the issues that will determine, over and above the personalities, what are the issues around which both campaigns have campaigned?
Remember the guy called Jim Carville? He's a CNN face, used to be Bill Clinton's special advisor during the 1992 presidential campaign when he was running against George H.W. Bush, the the older Bush, and he said it's about the economy, stupid. And that is a statement that holds true today and in every election in every country in the world. It's very much about the cost of living. It's very much about getting inflation down. But the Harris-Biden administration will argue that they've done that work in the 3.5 years since the COVID-19 pandemic. Inflation is down to 2.1% nationally, down from a high of around 8% plus. And the Federal Reserve's target is 2%. Employment is at just over 4%. These are good numbers that the Harris campaign can speak to. But the fact of the matter is that groceries are still expensive. People are complaining about fuel prices being too high. The feeling is that the cost of living is still too high, and that is something that still needs to come down, and that is something that Donald Trump has capitalized on. He's also capitalized on issues around illegal immigration and border security, painting the Democrats as weak, even though a compromised bill that was negotiated in the Senate between both Republicans, conservative Republicans, and Democrats, a compromised legislative bill to secure the border, was overruled by Donald Trump, as he insisted on making immigration and border control an election issue in this election cycle. So there's that issue. The other benefits here in this election campaign are issues around abortion and reproductive rights. And when I say benefits, beneficial to the Harris campaign, because she's made this a central aspect of her campaign. And what we are seeing in some of the data in the polling, Thulasizwe, is that, we've been talking a lot about these undecided voters in the swing states, these middle of the roads that take an inordinate amount of time to make up their minds. And what the data is suddenly showing us is a late break for Kamala Harris, but for Kamala Harris particularly among women. And women represent the largest demographic in a U.S. election. And so this abortion rights issue, the fact that the federal right to abortion was undercut by the U.S. Supreme Court decision in 2022, and Donald Trump appointed 3 justices that were part of that majority decision. So abortion very much an issue here. Saving America's democracy, also a big theme for the Harris campaign. The question is this: we have a diverse electorate in the United States. Which issue is going to drive the most people to the polling booth? And that is a question I cannot answer.
Lastly, Sharon, how have both candidates performed in their final pitch to U.S. voters? I've been hearing a lot of commentary about some of Donald Trump's advisors not being entirely happy with him not staying on message and not pushing that driving through the message around what he would do for the economy in the United States, especially in the last few days of campaigning.
Yeah, it's a great question, right? I've also seen these reports. The narrative out there is that the Kamala Harris campaign, the Democrats have been very disciplined in their closing message. She has given the same stump speech. There have been no real missteps. They've been very consistent in explaining what their policies will be to the American people, given the fact that she had a late start here. The juxtaposition to that has been a Trump campaign described by indiscipline, in large part due to the principle, the candidate himself, he's off message, he's unfocused. His insults against Harris, the way he talks about women, that she's got a low IQ, that she's stupid, does she drink, is she lazy? That stuff doesn't really resonate with women. And so Donald Trump has a female problem in this election. The men are supporting him, right, being pumped up by the likes of Elon Musk. The men are there for Donald Trump. But women represent a larger demographic in this election. And can Kamala Harris get them to the polls and get them to vote for her? It certainly seems that way, but it's still too early and too close to call.
Thank you for that, Sharon Bryce-Peace, SABC News correspondent in New York. We'll check in with Sharon again tomorrow morning, and by that time, we'll be starting to get a picture, I imagine, of how voting has gone in the United States, and perhaps the early results will be starting to trickle in. Let's check in with Ondela Mbana for the latest news headlines.
Thank you. To this news headlines at 6:30. The 2 suspects arrested in connection with the murder of the alleged underworld kingpin Mark Liffman are expected to appear in the George Magistrate Court in the Western Cape today. The Constitutional Court will this morning hear the DA's bid for the confirmation of the order of the Supreme Court of Appeal that South Africans who lost their citizenship after acquiring another nationality remained the country's citizens. And Americans will head to the polls across the country's 50 states later today. The election will determine if a woman will lead the world's most powerful country for the first time in history, or if a former president will return to the White House after losing 4 years ago. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
We need to just issue an alert to motorists between Pietermaritzburg and Durban this morning. There is some rain about, conditions wet and slippery. There are narrowed lanes through the multiple construction zones, and this high volume of truck traffic does look particularly dangerous out and about on that section this morning. We have the first of the crashes. This one is Pietermaritzburg side. It is Durban bound, blocking a couple of lanes coming down onto Town Hill. I believe a truck involved in that one as well. So if you're coming from Howick Hilton into Pietermaritzburg, that will hold you up. There's also a crash on Durban's M2 between Higginson Highway and the M7 Bluff exit to watch out for, and a breakdown further up by Sabaya. Some flooding as well around the Dust Road area this morning, R102 and M25 Commercial Highway Junction. Joburg, the Mike 1 worse than normal with a crash just before Smith Street in Braamfontein. That's pushing Mike 1 traffic very heavily back through towards Gold Reef City. It's always heavy, but this morning it's even worse. The M2 coming through from Joe Slovo going west into the Crown, into that Mike 1 traffic's already badly backed up as well. Pretoria, Mopani Highway down to Bremer Street via the Bend, already queuing from as far back as Theo Martins today. Cape Town, M2 inbound, very slow between the airport and the M5. There's a lot of traffic on that run through today. And Toys Kloof Pass remains closed between Paarl and Worcester for truck crash recovery. If you are needing to go that way, you'll be rerouted on the N1 through Huguenot Tunnel. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. So it seems that sometimes the happy people get too happy and then their team ends up being unhappy.
Yeah. It's a last warning now for Orlando Pirates supporters. And you know, they're known to be the most passionate supporters, but throwing projectiles on the pitch. I don't know how PSL is going to do something about this. Maybe they should have like frustration zones where fans can throw something. Not too hard. Okay, never mind. Let's find out what the real story behind the story is. The PSL Disciplinary Committee fining Orlando Pirates 100,000 rand following fan misconduct at the recent Carling Knockout Cup match against Magesi FC. Now, during the game which took place on the 19th of October at Orlando Stadium, frustrated Pirates fans threw missiles onto the pitch, and that was aimed at the match officials. The club admitted to the charge and was handed a 100,000 rand fine with half suspended for a year on the condition they avoid further incidents. Additionally, Pirates must cover all disciplinary costs. Elsewhere, Nottingham Forest owner Evangelos Marinakis has lost his appeal against a 5-game stadium ban. The 57-year-old was found guilty of improper conduct for spitting on the floor as the match officials walked past during Forest's 1-0 Premier League defeat by Fulham at the City Ground, and that was on the 28th of September. Now, let's go to action on the pitch. A big night for the Champions League, where the former Liverpool star and current Bayer Leverkusen head coach Xabi Alonso back at Anfield, where he made unforgettable memories, including that legendary 2005 Champions League win. Alonso returns tonight, but this time he's ready to challenge his old club, with Leverkusen aiming to upset Liverpool's current form. Here's what Xabi had to say about the challenge ahead of the game.
Well, for us it's a big challenge to come here. Probably Liverpool at the moment is one of the best, if not the best teams in Europe. They are showing that in Champions League. They are showing that in a very, very strong Premier League. Good squad, good coach, playing at Anfield. It's a big challenge, but I think that all of us, we are looking forward to it. For sure the players, and let's see what happens tomorrow.
Now this Sunday, all eyes will be on Murrayfield as the Springboks take on Scotland in a thrilling test match, with star fly-half Finn Russell returning for the Scots. Their backline promises some explosive play, adding depth alongside key players like Blair Kinghorn and the South African-born Duhan van der Merwe. But as former SA-born Scotland prop VPNL pointed out, it's all about the forward battle. If Scotland can hold their own up front, they might just give Russell the clean ball he needs to unlock the Springbok defence. Kickoff is at 6:10 in the evening. And golf news, the Joburg Open and the Joburg Ladies Open will bring world-class men and women's professional golf to the city of Johannesburg. The Pride of Joburg has moved from its traditional November date to a new time slot to the 6th
to the 9th of March 2025, once again returning to the Houghton Golf Club. This new date is because of a change in the global golf calendar. The Joburg Open will now have an even stronger presence on the Sunshine Tour. It will be the last co-sanctioned tournament of the season. And finally, tennis action. Elena Rybakina is on the cusp of becoming the first player to be eliminated from the WTA finals after she fell to a 3-set defeat by Zhang Qiwen in the group stages. China's Olympic champion Zhang played at the season-ending tournament for the first time, winning 7-6, 3-6, 6-1 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, her first victory over the Kazakh in 3 attempts. Now, prior to the start of the WTA finals, the 25-year-old Rybakina has not played on tour for 2 months, and that was due to illness and injury. That's where we wrap up sport for now. We'll have more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
And for that, we turn to Ndauleng Lechela. Good morning to you, Ndauleng. So all eyes on the United States today for Election Day, and you are saying to me that there's a focus on the market impact of that race between the Democratic contender and the Republican candidate.
Morning, Thulasizwe, and that's right. Investors are particularly keen to see how the outcome will impact markets and other asset classes. And so what they've been doing is looking back at history and how markets, the economy has performed to see how that can then influence what will happen after the US election. So historically, Democratic presidents have overseen better economic growth with average job creation at 1.7% per annum compared to 1% under Republicans. GDP growth averaging around 4.23% per year versus 2.36% under Republicans. Now, in terms of stock markets, research from investment firm Saxo suggests that equities tend to perform well in the first year of a Democratic presidency, with major indices like the Russell 2000 that houses most of the small cap stocks in the US and the tech-heavy NASDAQ showing stronger gains. On the other hand, a Republican victory is expected to result in a mixed market performance, with energy and industrial sectors benefiting from deregulation and pro-business policies. Moving over to safe havens, gold is expected to stabilize or decline under a Democratic president as improved economic stability reduces demand for gold as a safe haven asset. But under a Republican win, gold prices might continue to rise due to the slower pace of growth that is expected under a Republican administration. Sticking with Republicans in terms of oil, economists expect prices to rise driven by reduced regulation and support for domestic oil production. Under a Democratic administration, oil prices may experience moderate gains driven by short-term demand from the economic recovery. Economists, though, have warned that there are other events like geopolitical events and just trade wars that could impact how markets and other asset classes perform as well.
All right, so it will be interesting to watch how it all unfolds in the coming days and weeks, perhaps even months. Back here at home and in company news, Ndauleng, tell me about Altron. What kind of results, what kind of earnings have they delivered for the first half of the year?
So the local tech firm has had an impressive 6-month period with earnings more than doubling during the period. Now, the upbeat growth was driven by the strong performance of its platforms segments, particularly Netstar, which is a vehicle tracking business, Altron FinTech that facilitates transactions for business, including processing payments and collection of payments. And then there's Altron Document Solutions. Its primary functions include printing services as well as digital transformation, helping businesses move from paper-based to digital processes. So those businesses, those units are the ones that boosted earnings. In terms of contributions to the overall performance, Netstar posted a 21% increase in subscribers. Altron FinTech grew revenue by 10% and recorded a 54% rise in earnings. And Altron Document Solutions swung back into profitability, delivering a profit of 30 million rand from a loss of 123 million. While profits were upbeat, Altron experienced some pressure in in its top line due to its sale of its ATM business and decreased revenue at Altron Nexus. Despite that, the group remains confident in achieving its medium-term targets. These include a 19% operating margin in the platform segment, a 7% operating margin in IT services, and a 1.15 billion rand operating profit by the next financial year.
Lastly, Ndawling, give us a recap of the markets here at home as well as elsewhere in the world.
So ahead of that US election, markets closed slightly lower yesterday, with traders playing it safe in the US until we find out who the next president will be. The Dow Jones taking the biggest knock there, losing 0.6% at the close. Choppy trade for SA markets as well, with the JSE ending mixed. The All-Share managing to eke out some gains, up a tepid 0.03%. This comes as investors take a step back from riskier assets. In the currency scene, a weaker dollar is working in the benefit of the rand. However, volatility still remains with that US election under the spotlight today. The rand is sitting at 17.51 to the dollar. And then over in Asia, those markets trading firmly in the green, backing the overall trend. This follows a slew of positive headlines from China supporting sentiment on that end.
All right, thank you for that, Ndawling Lechela, with the first of 3 of her updates for you this morning on the Morning Brief. Look out for more from Ndawling on news to do with the economy, business and the markets, and that will be coming up in the second hour of the show just after 7:30.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? At Specsavers, get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the Morning Brief.
16 minutes to 7. Let's turn our attention to this story now. The Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Thulasizwe Simelane, has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Social Justice Foundation and the Consumer Profile Bureau to isolate child maintenance defaulters from economic activities. The MOU will allow for the online listing of maintenance defaulters with the Consumer Profile Bureau and Social Justice Foundation. The Minister also says her department will, over and above that, partner with the Department of Employment and Labor to ensure that potential employees are vetted for outstanding child maintenance. Let's bring into the conversation Felicity Ann Guest, who is a gender activist and the founder of Child Maintenance Difficulty in South Africa. Ms. Guest, good morning and thank you for your time. So the Minister has been quick to point out that what this is, the listing of the names of maintenance defaulters with credit bureaus, is in fulfillment of some of the criminal and civil requirements of the Maintenance Act. Do you think this is a move long overdue, and what difference will it make?
Good morning and thank you for having me. Good morning to the listeners. So this was enacted in January 2018. So this is not a new provision. This is a 6-year-old provision. Okay, it's taken them 6 years to get this far. So we welcome any move that will deter defaulters. Whether this is going to really solve the problem, I'm not too sure that this should have been a priority, okay? Because if we think about this, we have probably, let's say 10 million maintenance agreements in place. If we've got like 19 million children, 60% of fathers don't pay child support, most renege on court orders. So let's be conservative and say 10 million maintenance agreements. What capacity does the department have? Does anybody have? And how are they going to capture this data? That's my first question. My next question is, according to my research, half of the problem was it couldn't be decided exactly when somebody would be classified a defaulter in terms of the maintenance procedure, not in terms of civil procedure. Okay. Yeah. So is it when they don't pay? Is it when they pay late? Is it when the maintenance court has found that they have defaulted after 12 months of negotiation and facilitation to understand why people have not paid?
So you're saying there'll be difficulty.
So we need clarity on that.
There'll be difficulty in determining whose name rightly belongs with that listing on the credit bureau.
Well, what are they defining defaulting? Is it in terms of the normal? So if I'm a service provider and you have a contract with me, if you pay late, then you automatically, it goes onto your credit profile as a unreliable or inconsistent payer, and that affects your profile negatively. That's what blacklisting is. There's no such thing as, the old blacklisting. Yeah. So how are they going to compile that information? Okay, where are they going to get that information from? Because there is no central database. So I'll give you an example. In America and the UK, for example, every single maintenance payment goes through the government's, it's run by government. So every single maintenance agreement is registered on the government database. Yeah. So and we know the problem with African Americans and DV cases in America. So if you get stopped for a DV case, then it automatically flags that you are in arrears and they will arrest you. That the greatest prison population in America is made up of African American men who have defaulted on their maintenance. Sure. So one, we don't want to criminalize, okay, but I'm just explaining how it works in practice in other countries. So if we want to establish that, how do we do that in South Africa? We have many credit bureaus. My issue is the accuracy of the information and the time period, because that is going, and who's going to provide this information? Because according to my research, I've been monitoring this since 2015.
Ms. Guest,
okay.
just before I let you go, but in principle, is this the right move? With all the difficulties you've highlighted and the issues that will need to be navigated, in your view, is this something that will assist in ensuring that there's adherence to, if they get it right, of course, given your reservations, that there's adherence with maintenance orders? This, along with, vetting government employees to see at the point of interview whether or not they have defaulted on maintenance.
Yes, it is. We welcome any steps. But I'm going to ask this question again. Who are we protecting? Because in 6 years, how many mothers have been blacklisted, and how many mothers will continue to be blacklisted because their maintenance is not paid on time and their debit orders? So just in terms of protection, I would think that not instead of, but as well as focusing on improving the services in the courts so that the beneficiaries get the money when they deserve it as quickly as possible. So that means agreements are signed quickly, because at the moment processes can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and that's our problem.
All right.
So I'm just saying, how are they focusing on these issues if we're really looking at protecting vulnerable people?
I hear you. So systemic responses. Thank you for that, Felicity Ann Guest, who is a gender activist and the founder of Child Maintenance Difficulty in South Africa.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Stays heavy on the bike one this morning up into Joburg with a crash on that busy highway. The collision scene around Smith Street. Traffic backlogging right through to Xavier Street on one day, looking very heavy. Behind that, the M2 with nowhere to go but to push back as far as Joe Slovo. So the M2 into that Mike 1 congestion is heavy as well. If you can avoid the Crown, you'll be keeping yourself ahead of so much other traffic. Crash on the M1 coming out of Pretoria between Rigel and the R21, so things are slowing down there. Then it gets pretty heavily backed up from Brockfontein all the way down to the New Road exit. Wet weather conditions across much of KZN, particularly the corridors between Durban and Pietermaritzburg, the high volume corridors. Please drive with extreme care and caution. You've got a combination of wet weather, slippery roads, high volume of truck construction, narrowing lanes, all of that sort of stuff posing as real dangers this morning, particularly Pietermaritzburg down to Durban. But we are just seeing loads and loads of sort of bumps and shunts all over the region, with motorists finding it a bit difficult on the slippery roads. Also flooding around Duffs Road, so the R102 under some pressure down towards the Commercial Highway, and a crash as you come down towards Town Hill this morning on the N3 coming in from Hilton and Howick. May well have you slowed up through that part of Pietermaritzburg with the rain as well. Cape Town, a lot of complaints about Baden-Powell looking really heavy and thick as you come through from Khayelitsha, just the bottom of Mitchell's Plain, Baden-Powell Drive towards Witzenra, just approaching Strandfontein. Really heavy backlog through there. The M5 is pretty slow this morning from Ottery all the way up to the M2, and both the M2 and the N1 highways towards Cape Town noticeably busier than normal. It looks like being a high volume morning on the highways going into Cape Town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
What a day. Time for that face mask. Leave the face mask on for 2 minutes. 2 minutes? That's not even enough time for it to work. I can't even send an email in 2 minutes or make a cup of coffee.
With Santam, 2 minutes is enough to insure your car online. When you're fully protected with the expert insurer, you're free to live in the moment, not in the worry. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Channel decatted, recharged and flourishing you on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As coach Lucia Drummond offers practical steps to a less is more lifestyle. HR specialist Utat Omabelane shares key skills to revitalize your career. Plus, overnight oats is the perfect after-gym recharger. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
At 5 to 7, let's turn to this story. Action SA says it is concerned about what it believes is the escalating misuse of Gauteng's public healthcare system by foreign nationals. The party says foreign nationals receive oncology treatment without paying their medical costs, among other forms of treatment. Action SA says this practice not only places additional strain on already overburdened healthcare facilities, but it also diverts resources away from South Africans who require urgent care. Let's bring into the conversation Emma More, who is an Action SA member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. Good morning to you, Ms. More. I've got to thank you for your time. So what facts and figures do you have to back up the claim that Gauteng's public health care is being abused by foreign nationals?
Okay, thank you very much, Stanza. Good morning to yourself. Thank you for the opportunity. Good morning to the listeners. Standa, let me share the following statistics with you. Zimbabwean nationals, they own Steve Biko alone. Everything that I'm going to give you now, it's only Steve Biko. So you can imagine the greatness when it comes to Charlotte Mateke. Zimbabweans own Steve Biko 113 million. We also have Zimbabwe 14 million, Malawi 10 million, Nigeria 10 million, Ethiopians 10 million, Lesotho 7 million, Republic of Congo 7 million, Somalia 5 million, Tanzania 2 million, Zambia 2 million. The list goes on. We also have Ghana, we also have Congo, Angola, Pakistan, Cameroon, India, Rwanda, and Uganda.
And what is the source of those figures?
All of those countries, they own Steve Biko alone.
Sure.
More than 400 million. And then we also have South Africa. In South Africa, the foreigners that have IDs, you know those ones that have got South African IDs,
yes, but
they are not permanent citizens. They own Steve Biko alone 219 million. So we are saying as Action SA, this cannot continue. We need to come up with systems that will say, Home Affairs, we have this person here, they are not South African, please check for us. Because what is happening right now, people are disappearing, they are changing addresses, they have received the treatment, remember?
Yeah.
And it is amazing because when you start the process, it takes over 6 months or 5 months for you from the beginning when you do what they call scanning, when they identify the area with cancer and everything, up until what they call planning and treatment.
Yeah.
So you ask yourself, what has been transpiring when this patient comes to Steve Biko so many at times without paying, without any arrangement.
Sure.
And then
are we talking here, Ms. More? Are we talking here about foreign nationals coming into the country specifically for the purpose of receiving health care and perhaps thereafter leaving the country, or are you talking about the case of foreign nationals who are already settled in the country legally or otherwise, who as you and I know, entitled to basic health care in terms of our constitution and the National Health Act?
I think we have the mix here because we did not receive the further details. We have a mix here because, as I'm saying, we have those with South African ID, but they are not permanent. They own Steve Biko 219, and the rest that I read below, it looks like they are illegal. They might only be coming here for their services. So we do have a mix. To be honest, we don't have further details in terms of how many exactly just come for treatment and go back home, and how many have settled here. And remember, settling here, you can settle without legal documents.
Yes.
You can settle with legal documents. So we do not have that distinction in terms of the figures.
How should that loophole you've identified be closed, Ms. More?
Basically, we're asking the MEC to strengthen the administrative protocols. They must come up with a system and work with Home Affairs to actually identify people who receive treatment, who comes from other or who are not citizens, so that we know that Emamure is from Zimbabwe, Emamure is not a citizen, and make the necessary arrangements with those governments, because this basically it's stealing, this basically is corruption at its best. So we need them to pay upfront a certain amount. They will receive the treatment, but we need the whole health system to be overhauled so that even South Africans can benefit, because we have a lot of issues and problems in our hospitals, and we cannot accommodate more unnecessarily.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's Emma More, who is an Action SA member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, bringing us to 7 a.m. Let's get an update on the news from Ondela Mbana.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
Thank Thank you, Thulas. Top stories at 7. Suspects in the Mark Liffman murder case to appear in court and Americans head to the polls today. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana and a very good morning. The 2 suspects arrested in connection with the murder of alleged underworld kingpin Mark Liffman are expected to appear in the George Magistrate Court in the Western Cape today. 57-year-old Liffman was gunned down at the Garden Route Mall in George on Sunday, a day before he was scheduled to appear in the High Court in Cape Town. He was facing a number of charges, including the murder of steroid smuggler Brian Weinstein. Police spokesperson Andre Trott.
The pair, aged 37 and 53, were apprehended near Uniondale on Sunday afternoon, and the vehicle they were travelling in was also confiscated. After the suspects fled the scene, police, law enforcement officials, security companies and crime watch groups were activated to be on the lookout for the suspects in the region. As a consequence, the pair was arrested a couple of hours later.
The Constitutional Court will this morning hear the DA's bid for the confirmation of the order of the Supreme Court of Appeal that South Africans who lost their citizenship after acquiring another nationality remained the country's citizens. The virtual hearing will follow the DA's challenge of the constitutionality of a section of the Citizenship Act. The section stipulates that South Africans may lose their citizenship upon voluntary and formal acquisition of the citizenship of another country. To avoid this, they would need prior permission from the Home Affairs Minister. Kenny Mapanga reports.
Following the 2018 loss in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, the DA appealed successfully to the SCA, which found in its 2023 judgment that the said section arbitrarily imposes a loss of citizenship on those who acquire a second citizenship while failing to advance any legitimate government purpose. The DA wants the Apex Court to affirm the SCA order and to restore citizenship to those who lost it under the provision. The application is unopposed. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Management of the Ria Vaya bus rapid transit system in Johannesburg has advised commuters to use alternative transport, this after announcing the suspension of the system's services until further notice. The reason for the suspension is unknown. Ria Vaya spokesperson Benny Mahoga.
Ria Vaya passengers are informed that buses are temporarily suspended until further notice. Some transport stakeholders have raised issues relating to the 45 feeder buses that operate in Soweto. We are engaging with the stakeholders to establish the cause of the problem. Regular updates on the situation will be given, and we advise passengers to use alternative public transport. We apologize for the inconvenience.
In news further afield, the government of Equatorial Guinea has ordered the immediate suspension of any civil servants caught having sex in their departmental offices. It says such activity is a violation of public ethics. The measure comes after hundreds of videos involving a high-ranking civil servant having sex with women in the finance ministry were circulated on social media. And Americans will head to the polls across the country's 50 states later today. The election will determine if a woman will lead the world's most powerful country for the first time in history, or if a former president will return to the White House after losing 4 years ago. Over 73 million ballots have already been cast in early voting. Tabulation of the results will begin in earnest today, while an outcome in the hours after polls close. Sharon Bryce-Peace reports from New York.
Harris and Trump spent the closing hours of their campaigns in key battleground states, Trump in North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Michigan, while Harris made 4 stops just in Pennsylvania Monday. The key focus on winning enough swing states to secure either candidate an electoral college majority and thereby the White House. An election that epitomizes a split electorate and a divided country, both sides viewing a potential loss as debilitating to the country's future. Victory the preferred outcome to the anguish accompanying the alternative. The economy, immigration, abortion rights and America's democracy, key drivers in the cycle. In a presidential election, close or not, the winner will unapologetically take all.
Recapping the top story, the two suspects arrested in connection with the murder of alleged underworld kingpin Mark Liffman are expected to appear in the George Magistrates Court in the Western Cape today. I am Onde Lambana for SAFM News, headlines at 7:30.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
It's Black Friday season, South Africa. It's the season to save big. Switch to Outsurance and you could get mind-blowing savings on your car insurance premiums today. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. If Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings if they are cheaper, or cash in your pocket. It's a win-win for you. SMS out to 30754 to switch and save today. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, where you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Major backlogs out of Pretoria North with a fatal collision. It's Ruckle de Beer as you come onto Paul Kruger down to Vanderbom Junction. So multiple routes are backed up. Ruckle de Beer's heavy. Paul Kruger going south towards Esky and Pathladi's heavy. And you've got real problems on those routes out of Pretoria North linking on to those congested routes as well. So make sure you've got plenty of time to get out of the Pretoria North region this morning. The N1 between Bayers Nordia and Rivonia Road quite slow today. And an earlier crash on the Michael North near Smith Street, causing a big backlog from on Monday right through to the Parktown area. Durban side, very wet weather continues right across the sort of Durban-Pietermaritzburg corridor. Everything on a bit of a go slow. There's some real concerns with flooding and surface water and just wet conditions along the N3 through the construction. So please just take things very easy and very gently getting through today. M7 from Queensland up into Pinetown is a little bit busier than they might normally be expecting, and some flooding around Duff's Road, adding 1 or 2 delays on that run down from Southgate and the Phoenix area. Du Toit's Kloof Pass, just outside Cape Town, has been reopened this morning. It's been closed for a while for the truck crash recovery, but it's all open, so you've got the option of the Huguenot Tunnel or the R101 as your alternatives. And a lot of complaints about thick traffic on Baden-Powell this morning, coming through Strandfontein in towards the Coastal Park area. Big traffic on your way to Muizenberg. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
All right, good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, there's soccer action to look forward to. Orlando Pirates are aiming to keep their perfect record alive against Richards Bay tonight. And in some rugby news, Springbok Morne Steyn embraces his coaching role at the Lions. We'll have the details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. It's all the local and international news, current affairs, insights and opinions you need to lead the conversation today. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane and I'm here to deliver your Morning Brief. It's the second hour of the show on this Tuesday, and I tell you what, just glancing at my screen at the moment, the first ballots have been cast in the US, the first in-person ballots, because, you know, voting has been happening for some time. Remote voting and postal voting and the likes have been happening for some time in the United States. The first in-person ballots have been cast in the area of Dixville Notch in New Hampshire. There's a tradition there that early voting starts at midnight, and that is carried on a live stream, and that voting has already taken place there. It's a big day in the United States. It's election day in America, and we have all of your updates throughout the day here on SAFM as well as other SABC News platforms. But over the next half an hour or so, we'll have a focus on this story. Some white teachers at the Pretoria High School for Girls do not greet their fellow black colleagues, quote unquote, because they do not know whether they are cleaners or educators at the school. This was contained in a report which was released by the Gauteng Department of Education on Monday. Of course, the Pretoria High School for Girls has been right in the eye of the storm of allegations of racism, discrimination, and bullying. The first, this of course first came up when that conversations from a WhatsApp group were made known earlier on in the year. Around July, the department commissioned an independent report, and this line that I just quoted for you comes from its report, and we'll be in conversation in a moment to just analyze and unpack what that reveals perhaps about the culture at that school. But then we'll take it, as I said, a bit further and probe questions of social cohesion. Schools are located in society. The social cohesion in schools, one imagines, should reflect social cohesion within society. What's happening in society plays itself out in the schools, as we always say. So that really is the big focus for us over the next few minutes here on the show. Of course, all of your regulars lined up, locked and loaded for you, but also we'll be taking your calls, and the number to dial for that is 086 000 2032. I'll also take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are having the conversations that move us. The second hour of the morning brief starts now.
Hi, I'm Andrew, and I was recently diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome. Patients like myself go through a long and strenuous journey to get a stem cell transplant. I am grateful for the support I've received as I wait for the call that my donor has been found. This Sunflower Month, be a lifeline to patients like myself by registering to become a stem cell donor. You can save a life by registering at dkmsafrica.org.
Channel detected, recharged and flourishing you on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As Coach Lucia Drummond offers practical steps to a less is more lifestyle. HR specialist Uthad Omabelane shares key skills to revitalize your career. Plus, overnight oats is the perfect after-gym recharger. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
At 13 minutes past 7, let's focus on this story. Some white teachers at Pretoria High School for Girls do not greet their fellow black colleagues, quote unquote, because they do not know whether they are cleaners or educators at the school. This was contained in a report which was released by the Gauteng Department of Education on Monday. It is among findings made by Mdladlamba Attorneys, a law firm which was commissioned by the department to probe allegations of racism at the former Model C school. I'm joined now by Asanda Mwasheng, who is a diversity trainer, to take that conversation forward. Asanda, good morning. Thank you for your time. Let me start, because, you know, we led with that line. Let's start by focusing on that line about some white teachers not greeting their fellow black colleagues. A skeptic may hear this line that summarizes one of the key findings and observations and perhaps downplay it by saying, so what if they don't greet their black colleagues? But should it be downplayed? To what extent is such a finding telling of the culture at an institution like that school?
Good morning, Thulas, and thank you so much for having me. I mean, I've done diversity training for almost 10 years now in South Africa, and this issue of white people not greeting black people is one of the biggest issues I have dealt with in almost every organization. And a lot of the white people in these organizations often downplay, exactly as you said, and said, oh, why should they be forced to greet people? It's not in their culture to be forced to greet people. And what they don't understand is that it is in black people's culture to be greeted, because being greeted is a recognition that I see you. You know, in Zulu, the greeting is literally sawubona, an acknowledgement of seeing a person. So not only the person in front of you, but the person in their fullness, an acknowledgement of their fellow humanity. And so when people don't greet, it starts everything off on a bad note, because it says you don't recognize the person and the humanity of the person in front of you. And I find it quite fascinating, the reason for not greeting in this particular instance, because it tells us that not only is there racism, there's also classism, because they say they don't greet because they don't know if it's a teacher or if it's a cleaner. So my question then is, why should it matter whether what the person you have to greet is a teacher or a cleaner? Because you should be treating every human being with common, dignity of greeting, whether they're a teacher or a cleaner. It shouldn't, you shouldn't be okay with not greeting a person because they're a cleaner. So it speaks to the fact that there's a culture of racism, there's a culture of classism, and there's a very clear hierarchy that seems to operate in the school, that these teachers would think that fellow teachers deserve more dignity and humanity than say a cleaner. And this speaks to, again, something I've seen in many schools. I run workshops not only with teachers, but also with ground staff, support staff, and ground staff at most private schools and former Model C schools are some of the most ill-treated people, because they are ill-treated by parents as well as being ill-treated by the teachers. And often what you find is these people are so underpaid that they actually experience the poverty and the hunger that these schools then support through charities, etc. But they never think to look inward and to say, what are the issues that the people in our school are dealing with? And so one of the biggest issues, for instance, we find is that the ground staff and support staff find themselves having to package food, to package clothes, and other
Asanda, I want to ask you,
they are struggling.
This is not the first time that a school is under the spotlight in this manner, with allegations of racism, discrimination, and problematic cultures, some of them perhaps rooted in their traditions. What is it about schools that make these practices to manifest in the way that they do? Are they a reflection of society?
Schools are a microcosm of society. So, schools will literally replicate society down to a T. So if you look at, for example, even one of the other issues that's raised in the report is the fact that you've got these children who are prefects, 8 of them out of the 12 who are on the whites only WhatsApp group are prefects, and so they're the rule setters of society. And one of the conversations within that WhatsApp group that was problematic is a conversation with African or black students complaining that the rules don't seem to apply to white girls, they only apply to black girls, meaning that these prefects who are white children are implementing the rules of the schools when it comes to black kids, but they're not implementing the rules of the school when it comes to white kids, meaning that, again, they're replicating society, because society does this. Society is very hard and harsh when it comes to applying rules to black people, but when it comes to applying rules to white people, there seems to be a lot of leeway, there seems to be a lot more sympathy, and there seems to be a lot more understanding about the possible reason that led to whatever it is that they would have been alleged to do. And of course, it's not only schools that experience racism. I've worked with all organizations, corporate, law firms, NPOs. Across society, there's racism at a global level, and across society, there's racism at a South Africa level. So South Africa has a specific brand of racism, but globally there is racism. And as long as we're not dealing with that, we are going to continue to see this replication of racism in minor and in big ways.
I wanted to just get your sense on a different story altogether, the issue to do with Velgenhof men's residence at Stellenbosch University. We've seen how it has blown up in the last few weeks, in particular as far as the panel investigating that and their recommendation, one being some kind of a dialogue and trying to heal the divisions that were caused by, some of what was found at Velgenhof, the other being a permanent closure. And we've seen that debate taking place there. And I wanted to ask you about the remedy in instances where there's an institution that represents and symbolizes problematic, racist, discriminatory cultures. Is it always permanent closure and destruction, or are there pathways, as some are arguing within the Velgenhof issue, to be able to embrace that and perhaps work on a healing and a dialogue process?
Well, I mean, I think whether there are remedies or not depends on the community. So the community that is affected has to be the one that gets to decide. So in the case of Stellenbosch and that particular residence, for instance, there is a lot of undue influence, as far as I'm concerned, that the alumni are exerting and have tried to exert. And of course, they have a vested interest because they went to the school and they stayed at the residence, and for them, they may feel that the experiences that happened there were okay, but for a lot of people, there's a lot of trauma, and so you have to acknowledge that, first of all, wrongdoing took place, that there is trauma, and that people were hurt and harmed, and that yes, it may be a good solution to shut down. It's not always a good solution, but it may be a good solution. And I think one of the things that people kind of gloss over when it comes to Stellenbosch in particular is that Stellenbosch is the intellectual home of apartheid. And so it's not just about one residence having been found to have all this paraphernalia that was, that was espousing the racism, the homophobia, the sexism, and all of those isms that were taking place. It's about the fact that Stellenbosch is the home of racism. It is a place in which the intellectual aspects of racism were baked, were cooked, and were distributed to society. So you'll remember that, quite a while back, the scale that was used to measure so-called intelligence and come to the conclusion that the intelligence of people of color, anybody who's not white, is less than of white people, was found at Stellenbosch.
All right, Asanda,
we haven't dealt with those things, and that's what's happening now.
All right, thank you for that. That's Asanda Mwasheng, who is a diversity trainer, weighing in on some of these aspects coming out of Pretoria High School for Girls, but also the issues that have been highlighted at Velgenhof, around the issue of Velgenhof at Stellenbosch University. Let's take the conversation forward then with Dr. Sats Cooper, who is president of the Pan-African Psychology Union. Good morning to you, Doc. I've got to thank you for your time. To what extent do the manifestations of these problematic issues in schools, in institutions such as universities, as we are seeing them playing themselves out right now around the issue of Velgenhof, to what extent do they talk to the issue of social cohesion in our country?
Well, they actually speak to the lack of social cohesion. There hasn't been, and we're celebrating 30 years of democracy. There hasn't been the sense of connectedness and solidarity amongst groups in society, except in the negative. We don't have a sense of belonging in a community. Indeed, when we loosely talk of communities, we don't realize the extent to which those communities don't really exist. They have been destroyed largely, save in these little bubbles. Pretoria Girls, for some in one part of the school, in Stellenbosch in that residence, and so on. So they conjoin when their interests seem to be the same. But very clearly, these are symptoms of a bigger problem. Our children reflect the symptoms of a society that has actually failed them in terms of making them understand that they are part of the human family, that we are all the same biologically, that we have common interests, and if you look beyond the color of skin and a few other physical attributes, we should not be behaving in this way. Our education system as well fails us. The socialization we get in those places that stems from mother's milk in the home is toxic and will continue to be that way until we get an education system that addresses racism and its other manifestations head on. You are not going to have spontaneously people who have felt that they control everything in the country, and now it's the majority who has taken that over, feeling good about it.
What do you say?
Not going.
Sorry, Doc. What do you say to a reading that says not all sides, not all segments of South Africa's population are as committed to this process around social cohesion, that it always seems as if there's one side that is always giving and the other side's not coming to the party? That kind of critique. What do you say to that?
Well, look. Our founding president, Nelson Mandela, was the great reconciler, and people could identify with him, but they did not identify with one another. And that is the problem. We don't have people who have given up their own old negative racial identities. It comes to the fore. Every now and then we see it in the political and other arenas. And our schools, places that should be protected spaces that are safe, are rife with them. We know that this results in all sorts of terrible consequences. It results in children feeling they don't belong or aspiring to be white, and a variety of other pathological conditions. There isn't a program that government has embarked on within our schooling system to do this. And we've been seeing the reaction to the Bella Act, as if this is our place, we must control it and must continue venting our bile on children who we feel our kids should not identify with or be with. And that resentment hasn't been dealt with. Indeed, a short answer to your question, we have bent over backwards and we continue getting kicked.
All right, thank you for your insights this morning. That's Dr. Sats Cooper, who is the president of the Pan-African Psychology Union.
Ethical is what defines our business. I think outsurance does have integrity. They are not just there for the money, they're there to create a relationship. It's like a partner in business. It's the best thing we've ever done to switch over to outsurance. It's a no-brainer.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
India plan to cause an upset in Mzansi's own backyard. However, the Proteas are all about hitting the ground running at St. George's Oval to demonstrate what the Protea fire looks like. What a summer without cricket! Catch the spectacular second T20 international match between South Africa and India on Sunday 10 November at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and 4 p.m. on Radio 2000. With reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, you're listening to the morning brief here on SAFM. I'm trying to see if I can play one or two of your voice notes at the moment. A lot of reaction from you around the issue that has been covered around the Pretoria High School for Girls and what has been coming out from there. Let's see if we can listen to one of those voice notes now.
Thulasizwe, greeting someone has nothing to do with what that person is doing. We greet a person simply because he is a person, not because he's a teacher or a cleaner. You greet when you come across someone. This is how we know things to be, and this is how in Africa we've been doing things. You greet. Lazarus from Bumbela.
Yeah, absolutely, Lazarus. That really is the tradition in Africa, and perhaps if we spend more time talking with one another, getting to know one another, these little nuances would not be lost between us, such that you don't have a situation where when I encounter someone, I must now calculate, is this someone of importance? Should I be greeting them? Should I not be greeting them? Etc. There's definitely a lot of learning that needs to happen between South Africans. Let's check in with Ondela Mbana now with the latest news headlines.
Thank you. Thulas news headlines at 7:30. Some suspected illegal miners are feared dead and others still trapped in mine shafts in Albany and Stilfontein in the northwest. Scores of suspected illegal miners have already resurfaced from the mine shafts. The two suspects arrested in connection with the murder of alleged underworld kingpin Mark Liffman are expected to appear in the George Magistrates Court in the Western Cape today, and Americans will head to the polls across the country's 50 states later today. The election will determine if a woman will lead the world's most powerful country for the first time in history, or if a former president will return to the White House after losing 4 years ago. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
One of our top stories this morning, going heading out of Pretoria North. There's been a fatal crash. It's actually driving on Paul Kruger up into Pretoria North, but everybody getting caught having a look on the high volume southbound. So Ruckle to be on Paul Kruger down to Vanderboom Junction. That's a really heavy run through this morning. Just staying in Pretoria, there's a lot of traffic disruption on Euthius Road at the R101 and Main and Nell Mapius in the heart of Irene looking quite slow as well. Now the crash at the Crown, this time it's on the M2 westbound at the Crown, so heavy traffic coming through from Joe Slovo Drive, and the R21, the roadworks are still there up by the Bopsfontein exit, and the queues are forming up back through to the Benoni exit. That's northbound away from the airport through towards Pretoria. Durban through to Pietermaritzburg. Wet weather conditions across the region. Do take it easy. There's surface water and flooding dangers as well. A lot of bumps and shunts, so just make sure you got time to get out and get through it all safely. M7 into Pinetown is heavy, and there's some really big traffic on the Richmond Road at Marion Hill, whether you're going to Pinetown or trying to get through Marion Hill towards sort of Chatsworth, Clavata. Really heavy on that section of Richmond Road. This morning, Cape Town, the N7 both ways through to Bosmansdam Road is jam-packed. The N1 from Belleville heavy all the way through to the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So Zai, Orlando Pirates are 100,000 rand poorer, but they are soldiering on, taking on Richards Bay tonight.
Richards Bay tonight, yes, they are 100,000 rand richer. Poorer.
Unless you want to give them the 100,000 rand back.
Listen, Pirates fan, this is your reminder to keep your cool, right? Because you want to keep your winning streak intact, especially with Richards Bay, who are looking for an upset. Let me tell you that this team, Pirates, Orlando Stadium is where it's all happening. They've been unstoppable, winning all 6 league matches so far. They want to extend their lead over Mamelodi Sundowns, and fresh off a 2-0 win against TS Galaxy, Pirates have shown a formidable attack and a rock-solid defense, only conceding twice this season. Richards Bay, however, will be no walkover. They've had not much time to celebrate, reaching the semi-finals of the Carling knockout, with coach Brandon Truter admitting he was losing sleep ahead of facing Orlando Pirates. The Natal Rich Boys pushed Cape Town City all the way to penalties in the cup tie at the weekend and emerged winners to set up a fixture against Magesi FC at the same venue on Saturday. But Truter admitting he's a bit stressed about having to face Pirates now.
No, worried, I'm stressed. Pirates didn't play this weekend, not week. So they are fresh. We're going to Orlando as well. It's a difficult place to go to, especially when the ghosts fill the stadium. So we are very mindful about that. we have some concern in Keenan Allen. He's going for a scan as we speak. Might be concussed. So, and then we lost Langa as well with the red card. So, like I said now, we are not a big squad, and we rely on the DDC boys that's in there as well. Heads off to him, Somi, who keep on producing these boys.
Let's go to the former Springbok kicking legend, Morne Steyn, thriving in his new role as a kicking consultant for the Lions. Since retiring from franchise rugby with the Bulls, Steyn has joined the Joburg Burst team, where he's guided the next generation of kickers, working alongside familiar faces like Lions coach Ivan van Rooyen. Steyn is enjoying every moment, learning new coaching strategies every day, and he's got key players under his guidance, including talent like Sanela Nohamba, as well as Kian Horn and Cade Volhurter. Now, Steyn's commitment to shaping these players could see a new wave of talent rising in South African rugby. In the meantime, Prince William brought his A game to Cape Town this week, kicking off the Earthshot Week with a memorable rugby session. As part of his visit to support the Atlas Foundation, Prince William joined kids from local townships for rugby drills as well as digital skills. Now, in a special moment, he reunited with Tendai the Beast in Tuarira, rubbed shoulders with Springbok legends Joel Stransky as well as Percy Montgomery. Here's Montgomery.
It's a huge opportunity and for Prince William to come to South Africa and see what the Atlas Foundation is all about. We started, we collected all the stones out the way before the field was even laid down, and the generosity of the jerseys and what Atlas Foundation are actually doing, giving, it's not just life, it's on the field, but what they do off the field, giving them an opportunity in life.
And finally, golf. The American world number one Nelly Korda has clinched the LPGA's Point-Based Player of the Year award with 3 events left in the 2024 season, the top women's professional golf circuit. The 26-year-old Korda has claimed 6 victories in 2024 and had 3 additional top 10 finishes. That's how we wrap up sport. We'll have more top of the hour. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again, Dowling. So tell me about Redefine and how they are feeling, Redefine Properties, and how they are feeling about the prospects of a turnaround in the property sector. Dowling, can you hear me? All right, we seem to have lost Dowling Lechela there. We'll try and get her back on the line to just report one of the stories, of course, that she's covering has to do with a turnaround in the property sector. She's been hearing from Redefine Properties. Let's see if we have Dowling back. Dowling, can you hear me? Tell me about Redefine and their optimism about a turnaround in the property sector.
So sentiment to us around property stocks has generally been improving, with the South African listed property index soaring over 38% year to date. And while this optimism hasn't really started reflecting in a number of property companies' earnings, the firms remain optimistic. Redefine Properties, one of those companies that are upbeat despite recording a near 3% dip in annual distributable earnings yesterday. According to the company's CEO, Andrew Conning, improved confidence, lower political uncertainty, and progress in economic reforms are key drivers for growth for the sector. The company that owns Centurion Mall expects distributable income per share to grow up to 6% next year. The positive outlook is boosted by both its local and international operations. Redefine says the Polish economy is stabilizing, with retail spending rebounding due to moderating inflation and electricity costs there returning to pre-energy crisis levels, and so it expects a turnaround in that region. Redefine's Polish assets, which make up about 35% of its portfolio, reported an occupancy rate of 99.1% and positive reversions of 0.2%. In South Africa, Redefine's retail and industrial sectors are showing strong growth, with positive reversions of 0.2% and 5.5% respectively, while the office sector remains under pressure with negative rental reversions of close to 14%. Colin notes that this is an improvement from the previous year, though. Occupancy levels across the group's South African portfolio are also improving, increasing to 93.2% from 93% in the previous financial year. So there aren't any difficulties in retaining tenants, but they are finding difficulty in increasing rents, particularly in this economic climate.
You know, Darling, I've never really known what AECI does. I've always assumed it's in the chemicals space, but without any level of detail. But what we do know, what they don't do or won't be doing for much longer, is this business around asphalt.
That's right. So in M&A action, the JSE's in the JSE, Africa's largest commercial explosives manufacturer, ACI, is selling one of its subsidiaries, Match Asphalt, for 1.1 billion rand. A consortium consisting of Old Mutual Private Equity and Sphere Investments will be picking up the asset. AECI's strategic decision to divest from Match Asphalt aligns with its focus on its core businesses, including mining and chemicals. So those will be the segments or the units that it'll be focusing on, its mining and chemicals explosives units. Now, Match Asphalt is a maker of bitumen products. They produce materials for building and repairing roads and airport runways. The company has around 14 factories across the country. Speaking on the deal, Old Mutual Private Equity co-head Jackie Myberg said the group has confidence in South Africa's infrastructure repair initiatives and looks to invest in sectors that will recover to normal levels over the medium to long term. The transaction is subject to regulatory approval and other conditions expected to be fulfilled by next year in June. Proceeds from that sale will be plowed back into ACI's core businesses that include the mining and chemicals divisions.
Lastly, then, recap for us then the JSE, Asian markets, and the U.S. close.
So starting in Asia, stocks in positive territory there as traders eye the outcome of the week-long meeting in China that could end in more fiscal measures that would be used to support the world's second largest economy. With that, the Shanghai index making the biggest gains there, up over 2%, followed by Hong Kong's Hang Seng gaining 1.4%. Meanwhile, in the U.S., futures are flat as jitters take hold of markets ahead of the election. In good news, though, Boeing factory workers have voted to approve the new wage contract, putting an end to the 7-week strike. And then back at home, markets ending mixed as caution takes hold. The oil share up 0.03% at the close yesterday. The rand, in the meantime, remaining pretty steady despite the volatility in markets, trading at 17.51 to the dollar.
All right, we'll see you in the third hour. That's Ntauling Lechela there, watching business, the economy, and the markets for you here on the Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
And for that, let's turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. So it's election day in America, as we've been saying. What are the interests of Africa, and why do we watch this election as Africans?
Fresh morning to us and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. To us, indeed, looking at the elections today, choosing the 47th president of the United States of America. For the continent, to us, I looked at the African policies within the two candidates, both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. None exist to us because even if Kamala Harris visited Ghana and Zambia last year, Donald Trump, when it was his first term, he didn't have any African view. Others are saying from contempt to neglect. Despite that, he has Prosper Africa initiative of pushing the middle class within the continent and the U.S. There are still many challenges to us that we are facing. As I say to you, it is for the African continent to look whether are they looking towards China or towards Washington when it looks at its foreign policy. So it is important for us to closely watch these elections in terms of what will be an African position should any of the candidates win these elections tomorrow.
Yeah, so we calibrate accordingly, according to what the outcome is and what the position is of whoever the president will be in the United States. Talk to me about what's happening in the Great Lakes in the DRC. The M23 rebels are on the move there.
So it's very worrying. At the same time, within few days, we have the Luanda process taking place between Rwanda and DRC in Angola. And now you have a town that has been seized by the M23. They call it Kamnandi Jite. This is one of the areas that is located between Lake Edward in Uganda and the city of Beni in the northern part of the DRC. So it is worrying to us when the M23 have seized a new town on the border between Uganda and the DRC. At the same time, you have the talks that others are saying they are dragging, and that will also push the SADC mission in the DRC. How do they handle these border disputes that are in Uganda as well as in the DRC?
In Chad, Sipho, why is the president there, Idris Deby, threatening to withdraw from a regional security coalition?
You know, Thulas, the issue is that when you talk of Lake Chad, we need to remind the listeners, we are talking of Niger, Cameroon, Nigeria. That Lake Chad basin, we have many armed rebel groups that have been operating since 2009 during the time of Boko Haram. Now you have a multinational joint task force that Idris Deby is worried in terms of level of coordination, level of engaging with the common enemy, and he's saying they might have to withdraw. But the three countries have not come out clear in terms of this statement that came from N'Djamena, the capital city of Chad. Nigeria, Niger, and Cameroon have been mum about this view coming from Chad.
And lastly, here in South Africa in Midrand, the Pan-African Parliament is assembling, and is education at the core of the focus?
Absolutely, Thulas. It's very important that the Pan-African Parliament has started the sitting yesterday under the theme Educate an African Fit for the 21st Century. A very important session also to look at the African developmental goals. How is the continent merging with the SDGs 2030 as well as Agenda 2063? This is a very important meeting, Thulas. It's not just MPs coming to Sandton and going to the Parliament. It is important that also our Deputy Minister of International Relations, Thandi Moraka, also spoke about this issue of education as very important to look at the future challenges that faces the African continent. This parliament, Thulas, most of the listeners knew about it when there was a contestation of who should chair that parliament. So it is important constantly to remind them that the Pan-African Parliament is one of the vehicles of the African Union.
Absolutely, and many people will remember those dramatic contests. Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, you are taking us to 5 November 1987, and it all has to do with Umgov.
Thulas, that was running in my mind. He was released on this day, by the way, Thulas. And Umgov, when you think of Governing Mbeki, one will recall the Rivonia trial. One will recall also that Umgov was in the media space. He was in the editorial team of the New Age. He was sentenced in 1964, and also he passed away on the 30th of August 2001 at the age of 91. So he's part of our 30 years of reflecting of those who have the highest award in the liberation movement, as he got the Orlando in 1980. You know, that was so early in 1980, not only after 1994, but he also played a key role, as others they were saying. He wrote many songs and manuscripts which was smuggled out of prison. Asante sana Thulas, as was leading the conversation, SAFM.
Yeah, the giants that have left their footsteps on this country's history. Umgov, Governing Mbeki. Thanks for that. That's Sipho Mandula there with your Africa update.
RB Leipzig believe every football moment counts, and they want nothing but a win. Meanwhile, Borussia Mönchengladbach target 3 points as they embark on a journey to escape from the bottom half. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch the nail-biting encounter between RB Leipzig and Borussia Mönchengladbach on Saturday, 9 November at 7:30 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone. Always on SABC Plus. Also available on SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
With Outsurance, you don't need to wait until Black Friday to get awesome savings on your car insurance premium. SMS out to 30754 for a quote today. If Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask for 500 Rand cash and make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings if they are cheaper, or cash in your pocket. It's a win-win for you. SMS out to 30754 to switch and save today. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, where you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, Joburg got its traffic light faults kicking in and causing major delays again. Grayston Drive and the Mike 1 very heavy coming up from Wynberg, and some big traffic again today from Boysons all the way through up towards that Grayston exit. It really does have a major impact. Other issues, the N12 and R24 inch jam-pack coming in from Ekurhuleni towards Galilee's. Closer you get to the interchange, the heavier that traffic gets. And quite a big backlog today on the R21 leaving the airport up through the roadworks towards the Bopsfontein exit. Crash on Pretoria's N1 South at the R21. So coming through from Garsfontein, that remains very slow. And a fatal crash this morning coming out of Pretoria North. I understand it's on the northbound track of Paul Kruger, but it's having a big impact coming southbound. So Ruckeldebeer on the Paul Kruger down to Vanderboom Junction. Some really big backlogging going on in that area as well. A lot of rain across parts of KZN, and particularly the commuting corridor between Durban and Pietermaritzburg. Drive very safely, please. There's some real heavy traffic on the M13 again, Hillcrest to Kloof. The M1 Richmond Road in the heart of Marion Hill by RTI. Down by Milky Way. That's really heavy, whether you're trying to get through to Chatsworth or trying to get up towards the Pinetown area. And we've got some rain and wet weather conditions causing disruption along Chotamotala coming into Pietermaritzburg, into the sort of N3 bridge. There's some traffic lights down in the Northdale area, adding a bit of delay to your travels through there. Cape Town side today, the N2 inbound from Robert Sabuka at a hospital bed. The N1's busy, Clanacliff Hill right through to the elevated freeway. Routes like Marine Drive queuing to get in there as well. Baden-Powell up towards the N2 on your way to Stellenbosch is very slow. And if you're driving Eastern Cape area, just a reminder, protesting between Mount Aleph and Mount Frere in one of the construction zones, just with some burning tyres. That's going to extend journey times even further. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about Outsurance. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to Outsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Yusuf, 45 from Tegadal, pays just 700 Rand a month for his 2021 VW Polo.
That just shows that Outsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
There's never a dull moment when South Africa share the cricket field with India. Africa takes on Asia at the battleground of Kingsmead in Durban. What is summer without cricket? Catch the thrilling first T20 international action between South Africa and India on Friday, 8 November at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC3 and 5 p.m. on Radio 2000, with reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, I want to take two quick calls before we get to our next story. Let's speak to Paul in Joburg. Good morning to you, Paul. You want to talk to me about racism?
Yes, morning to Thulasizwe. Look, I'm going to start by saying, if you remember a letter that former President Thabo Mbeki wrote to the Premier, Lesotho.
Yes.
He indicated that it seemed as if the department was determined to smear the PHSG with the charges of racism. So, to me, and I share the very same sentiment. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at what is happening now, they went and do an investigation, and from that investigation we had expected that they'll come with something tangible that talks to the racism that is happening there. Mm. And because now they could not find anything, they had to just find something that they stick this thing to. You can't come and say because white teachers don't greet black teachers, and then that is the finding of an investigation report which money was being used to conduct. We had expected that they're going to say maybe the black teachers are not allowed to share a bathroom and all those things that point to racism. But if we talk about greeting, Thulasizwe, I'm from a background where it's black, it's a black school. Everybody there is black, but not everybody there is greeting everyone.
I hear you.
And you can't then come and say this is racism. And I'm saying
there were other findings as well. Paul, what do you say about, for instance, the findings around the kind of support that the investigation says is extended to office holders who happen to be white versus the same support not being extended to those office holders who are black?
No, I'm saying, Thulasizwe, if I haven't read this report in its entirety, but if we look at what we are flagging now, I'm saying this report was then made so that it covers what even President Beki has indicated to say. They have jumped the gun.
Okay.
You know, they went and suspend everybody as if there's something very big happening, and now they had to come up with a report that at least come and cover what has already been done.
Gotcha.
But to come and say greeting, greeting when we meet on the passage, it's not a matter of race.
All right.
Thank
you, Paul. Let's leave it there. That's Paul in Joburg there. Let's quickly take a call from Moses in Bramley. Good morning to you, Moses.
Good morning, Thulas. How are you?
Very well. Also on the same issue of racism, short and sharp, please.
Yeah, Thulasizwe. An impression was created after 1994, whereby Mandela's and others, they said they're building a rainbow nation. That was a fallacy. There was no rainbow nation. White people are still treating us in this day until today. I mean, I work for a company. I've got a manager in another branch who, when he gets in, he finds you, he knows you work there, but to another branch. He just passes you, and the manager used to be there before. He was bubbly. He could ask you, Moses, what are you here for? And stuff like that. But, you know, white people really, this government of the ANC, they've given them, and we tried our best to accommodate these people in mother's land, in a country of our own, where they actually take it with some other means. And they don't respect us even today when Thulasizwe. White people, they don't respect black people.
Not all of them, right? Not all of them. Let's just put that.
Majority of them. Majority of them.
Okay, debatable. All right, thank you for that.
White people.
Thank you for that. Moses in Bramley there weighing in on issues of racism and race relations in this country.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
To this now, the Public Service Commission yesterday launched a Constitutional Values and Principles Fellowship Program for public servants. The Commission says the 5-day fellowship is designed for South African public servants aged between 18 and 35 years who, amongst others, work in the area of ethics and integrity. Let's bring into the conversation Zukiswa Mkolomba, who is Deputy Chairperson of the Public Service Commission. Good morning to you, ma'am. Thank you for your time. Which values in particular are relevant for this cohort of people 18 to 35 that work in the area of ethics and integrity?
Good morning to your viewers and to SAFM. So basically the values that we want to promote are the values that are enshrined in Section 195 of the Constitution. And there are 9 values in particular that we're teaching and upskilling and developing skills and a sense of ethos and commitment to when it comes to the participants of the program. I think for me, one of the most important values is the promotion and maintenance of high standards of professional ethics, and is part of our agenda as the Public Service Commission to professionalize the public service. Second would be to make sure that we provide services to our communities in a manner that is impartial, fair and equitable, without bias, and to be developmental in terms of the orientation of the public servant. And I think most importantly, particularly as they begin to grow up and move up the ranks of the public service, I think a value which is also important is the effective, efficient and economic use of our resources, whether it be financial resources or non-material resources like human resources. But in essence, there are 9 broad values, and those are some of the values that we would like to inculcate and institutionalize by developing these champions and ambassadors and torchbearers of constitutional values and principles as enshrined in Section 195 of the Constitution.
Why focus on this particular age group, 18 to 35, entering the public service?
It's because I think one thing we want to make sure is that we have we build from the bottom up. and we build our timber from the bottom up, so that we begin to have an exposure and an appreciation for why and how they can exemplify and embody the best values of our humanity and the best values of our constitution from the ground upwards. I think another reason why we decided to focus on this particular group of young emerging public servants was also because we realized that most training programs that take place in the public service don't target young people who are in the below or junior roles in the public service. So we actually wanted to make sure that we also develop programs that are relevant for their growth and professional development, and that as they grow up, we begin to develop a new pedigree and a new breed of young public servant with an appreciation for values-led leadership and values-led governance in the public service. So you grow the timber upward bottom, and you make sure that from the very beginning, as they enter the public service, they have an appreciation for these values and principles.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That is Zugiswa Mkolomba, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the Public Service Commission, bringing us to 8 a.m. It's time for a news update with Ondela Mbana. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
Thank you, Tulas. Top stories at 8. Update on illegal miners trapped in shafts at Stilfontein and drastic measures needed to avoid food poisoning deaths. For SAFM News, I am Ondela and a very good morning. Some suspected illegal miners are feared dead and others still trapped in mine shafts in Orkney and Stilfontein in the northwest. Scores of suspected illegal miners have already resurfaced from the mine shafts. One of them, who has managed to evade arrest, says thousands of people are trapped underground without food or water. Provincial Police spokesperson Sabata Mukhabone says illegal mining is a serious crime.
We are dealing with criminal activity here, and those that are committing crimes, they will be dealt with accordingly, and then they will be processed according to the law. Because remember, South Africa is a constitutional democracy, and we cannot allow lawlessness in our country. And we must also emphasize the fact that we are not aware about the people that are actually trapped underground. Because I'm not sure what is it when they say that people are trapped underground. Because we have what we call Mine Crime Combating Forum. That is the structure that is actually dealing with this particular matter, where we have quite a number of stakeholders. If indeed there was something like people had been trapped underground, I think that should have been reported accordingly.
The 2 suspects arrested in connection with the murder of alleged underworld kingpin Mark Liffman are expected to appear in the George Magistrates Court in the Western Cape today. 57-year-old Liffman was gunned down at the Garden Route Mall in George on Sunday, a day before he was scheduled to appear in the High Court in Cape Town. He was facing a number of charges, including the murder of steroid smuggler Brian Weinstein. Police spokesperson Andrew Trott.
The pair, aged 37 and 53, were apprehended near Uniondale on Sunday afternoon, and the vehicle they were travelling in was also confiscated. After the suspects fled the scene, police, law enforcement officials, security companies and crime watch groups were activated to be on the lookout for the suspects in the region. As a consequence, the pair was arrested a couple of hours later.
The DA says it is ready to help South Africans overseas who have lost their citizenship to reclaim it. The party has approached the Constitutional Court to seek confirmation of an order of the Supreme Court of Appeal that invalidated a section of the Citizenship Act. The section stipulates that South Africans may lose their citizenship upon voluntary and formal acquisition of the citizenship of another country. To avoid this, they would need prior permission from the Home Affairs Minister. Leader of the DA abroad is Ludra Stevens.
Even though the judgment last year wasn't challenged by the then Minister of Home Affairs, the Constitutional Court still has to give the final go-ahead. The DA board firmly believes that this reinstatement should be automatic, free of charge, and without any red tape. For anyone who doesn't want their nationality back, they should have an easy opt-out process. But those who want to get it back, it must be seamless. we need to cover all bases, including cases like children born to parents who have lost their nationality as well. We are ready to help South Africans reclaim the nationality with as little hassle as possible.
Gauteng Finance MEC Lebogang Maile says drastic measures should be urgently taken to prevent more deaths related to suspected food contamination. He has called for the declaration of a state of emergency as cases increase around the country. In the latest incident, a 10-year-old girl died after allegedly consuming snacks suspected to have been bought from a local spaza shop in Alexandra Township in northern Johannesburg at the weekend. The girl's mother and 4-year-old sibling were admitted to hospital after allegedly consuming the same snacks. They are now in a stable condition. He says addressing the problem requires collaboration.
For starters, we can just start by closing all of them, and then everybody must start afresh and apply and check everything. We deal with who's supplying the manufacturing and all that. So we just need to do something drastic to ensure that we prevent these poisonous food getting into the shelf. The health inspectors, law enforcement agencies, so everybody will have to play their part. The municipalities, it's a big problem. It requires everybody. So you must deal with the issue comprehensively.
In international news, Americans will head to the polls across the country's 50 states later today. The election will determine if a woman will lead the world's most powerful country for the first time in history, or if a former president will return to the White House after losing 4 years ago. Over 73 million ballots have already been cast in early voting. Tabulation of the results will begin in earnest today, while an outcome in the hours after polls close. Sharon Bryce Pease reports from New York.
Harris and Trump spent the closing hours of their campaigns in key battleground states, Trump in North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Michigan, while Harris made 4 stops just in Pennsylvania Monday. The key focus on winning enough swing states to secure either candidate an electoral college majority and thereby the White House. An election that epitomizes a split electorate and a divided country, both sides viewing a potential loss as debilitating to the country's future. Victory the preferred outcome to the anguish accompanying the alternative. The economy, immigration, abortion rights and America's democracy, key drivers in the cycle. In a presidential election, close or not, where the winner will unapologetically take all.
Recapping the top story, some suspected illegal miners are feared dead and others still trapped in mine shafts in Orkney and Stilfontein in the northwest. One of them who has managed to evade arrest says thousands of people are trapped underground. I am Mondolambano for SAFM News, headlines at 8:30.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43187. 25-year-old Chanel loves Outsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance designed for older cars. For her 2012 Hyundai i10 1.2, she only pays 458 Rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, you get up to 1 million Rand liability cover. That means if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million Rand. Add even more value with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rand. SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR to 43187 today. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's, C's and information online.
Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy coming out of Pretoria North this morning. A fatal crash on Paul Kruger down by Vanderbilt Junction, backing traffic heavily at Pretoria North all the way along Ruckle de Beer and causing some congestion on those routes that feed out of the north into that traffic on Ruckle de Beer. Crash on the M1 south of the R21. Traffic stays fairly heavy as you backlog from Gaafsfontein Road. N1 both ways down towards the William Mandela off-ramp, pretty heavily backed up. A way to get off, still no traffic lights there. And some lights off on Caller Drive around the Mike 1 if you're coming in from Bramley this morning across the Melrose. That is quite slow. R21 up to the roadworks at Bobsfontein. That stays heavy for motorists leaving the airport. Heavy traffic on Durban's Richmond Road in the heart of Marion Hill down by Milky Way. Big delays coming from Pinetown or try to go to Pinetown. Flooding on the Southern Freeway at Congellisa heading into City Centre this morning. The N13 Hillcrest to Kloof as you approach the Fields Hill area remains heavily backed up as well. Protesting Mount Aleph, Mount Frere, burning tyres in one of the construction zones this morning will disrupt traffic further. And Cape Town, some big traffic on the N7 into Borsmansdam Road, northbound from Goodwood, southbound from Plattercliff. It's all very heavy. And the M5 stays a route under pressure. You'll sit from Kenilworth this morning from Racecourse Road all the way up to a busy N2 inbound. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. It's soccer. Richards Bay coach Brandon Truter plans a lineup shake-up as his team prepares to face a well-rested Orlando Pirates tonight. And Botswana's Letsile Tebogo is named the finalist for the Male Track Athlete of the Year. Details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
We are into the third hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief. Good morning, South Africa. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. A number of conversations that we've started in the last 2 hours have really struck a chord with you, in particular issues to do with race relations, social cohesion, and what needs to be done to get us across that point of social cohesion. That really seems to be the dominant conversation that has been taking place over the last 2 hours. And I will take more of your calls. The number to dial is 086 000 2032, as well as your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. The other themes, of course, that have come through are around the U.S. election. It's election day in America. A reflection on what the possible implications are for, any of the two scenarios, a Kamala Harris win or a Donald Trump win. What does it mean? Does it matter for us as Africans to the southern tip of the continent? I am seeing some of your contributions around that, as well as the issues around resources at hospitals and access to healthcare by foreign nationals, whether documented or undocumented. These are some of the conversations we've started. Put yours on the table. Let's hear from you on those numbers I just gave. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
16 teams of Mzansi Africa's Elite League are back to the battlefield. Ngamandla Masha. They all believe Ubutukusoba right, Uba bright, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fagukesi. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ibola Lasemzansi, the Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's do exactly that. Let's take a call from Luvo in Kabeja. Good morning to you, Luvo. You want to talk about the issue of racism?
Yes, good morning to us. Yes, to us. I want to talk about that. Chilas, first things first. Not to greet person when it becomes racism. When we black people don't greet each other, what do we call that?
Sure.
Two, Department of Education, they're supposed to focus their energy on making sure they're getting rid of big toilets. They make sure black child get the proper education. They make sure in Kabeja and PE it's raining. Some of the kids can't go to schools because the schools are not a safe place to go. The roofs are leaking, raining, all that stuff. Now, I would like to remind the South Africans, to warn them, let's stop allowing the ANC to divide us. Because when it comes into race, they jump. They use the race card to divide us. We as South Africans, no matter what color you are, if you don't want to greet a person, you don't want to greet a person. That's not a racism.
Let me just challenge you just for a moment, and I'm not saying this is what happens at that school in particular. When you notice a pattern that it is only the black colleagues that don't get greeted, but everyone else is greeted, don't you have reason to then start reading, as well as, reading all the other elements within the school environment? Doesn't that give you cause for concern to say, but hang on, how come the interaction is different when it's a white colleague versus when it's a black colleague?
It gives concern to us that we as black people, we need to do what we call introspection. Because if something like that happens, we're supposed to ask one another what's happening here, to look at ourselves first. We like to always use a race card for anything we as black people against white people. Because ANC has planted that seed to us so that we can be divided.
Sure.
As united, they know politicians, they stand no chance. But as divided, politicians are standing a chance. And ANC is always using a race card.
All right, Luvo, let's leave it there. That's Luvo out in Kabeja. Let's speak to Marshall in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Marshall. You also want to talk about racism, but in particular, you want to focus on Cape Town.
Yes, man. Good morning, Steve, my brother, and good morning to the S7 family, man. I think I heard what the previous speaker said, but I also disagree with the previous speaker. You know what happens where I stay? Racism is very big here. Here, the white people look after the white people. And when you want to get a particular job, let it be construction, let it be the film industry, or even whatever game it is where they are in control, they make first privilege for their people. It seems like us black people, we are not competent enough to get a management position because it scares them of their jobs. Now, also yesterday I read something where Zella said that the business community said they must protect Cyril. Is the business community white? Is it black? What is it? So in the Western Cape, that is also what is happening. Supposed to be the businesses are saying, if the DA don't control here, they'll take the investments.
Sure.
For me, that's a big concern, my brother.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. That's Marshall out in Cape Town. Let's take a call from Crispin in Durban, also talking about racism. Good morning to you.
Thulasizwe
Simelane, Crispin.
The thing that gets me here is that people are not looking at the whole system. It's clear what's happening in the so-called white schools, and they're still called white schools for a reason, and because that idea of whiteness, if you like, is dominant. But what is happening in, say, township schools? So my friend's child goes to a school which I know extremely well. My godson went there, and the standards there are simply terrible, and the justification for this seems to be, these are poor and black youngsters, so they don't actually have to be treated with respect or thoughtfulness. So in that school, the youngster is beaten all the time for just about nothing. Secondly, the teachers don't come to class. The teachers would never think of sending their own children to a so-called black school. This is outrageous. But this image of whiteness as being high quality pervades the whole system. It becomes the justification for the mistreatment of schools throughout, mistreatment of youngsters throughout the whole system. It's also the issue of teachers preying sexually on youngsters in the schools. We know this is happening.
Yeah.
And this should be seen in terms of our racial history and the exploitation of black people.
Crispin, I hear you. And what I take from what you said is the whole conversation around affirming the dignity of people in South Africa and ensuring that, there's delivery of services and it's equitable regardless of what race a person is. Let me take one or two voice notes that have to do with the incidents out at the Pretoria High School for Girls. girls. Let me see.
Thulas, I just want to say, so if you don't know whether a person is a cleaner or not, why not greet them? And I stay in the west of Joburg, and greeting is in the Afrikaans people's culture. They greet you wherever you are, even if you're not looking. They will acknowledge you. So this other thing of Afrikaans people not greeting is actually just self-manufactured. I don't know about English people, but Afrikaans people, they greet a lot. They've got a lot that is similar to us. They've got auntie, puti, sisi, they do it often. So this is just strange in Africa. Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Yeah, Bongi, you know that whole thing around greeting, I've got to share this. I also, you grow up and you say, it's said that white people don't greet, etc. And I started behaving in that way. When I moved to the west of Joburg, as you say, I was astounded because, people would just greet, and I started feeling bad that maybe I'm the one who's rude, actually, because these people are just greeting me, everywhere you go. You're absolutely right. It is an observation that I've also made, particularly where I live in the west of Joburg.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. How possible is it that a white teacher doesn't know that this black one is a teacher, a cleaner? Because at school, every morning, teachers meet in the staff room for a briefing. Even if they don't meet every morning, it happens once per week. That's why they can know that this one is a teacher, this one is a cleaner. Besides, you don't greet someone because he's a teacher or a cleaner. It's human, it's African, it's biblical that we must greet each other. Thank you, Ma'am Bob.
Yeah, that seems to be the consistent theme, that the greeting and courtesies should not be dependent on your station in life. Let me take a call from Jock in Durban. Good morning to you, Jock. You also want to talk about racism?
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Always good. First of all, I'd just like to say that I think it's more of a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It's easy to generalize and say that white people don't do this and white people don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, my grandfather and my father were kicked out of their home in the Group Areas Act. And the one thing that they told me or taught me was don't let your oppressor define who you are. And your previous caller about 3 or 4 calls ago was completely right. It's basically an upbringing thing about whether you greet or not.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot generalize that. And there's the biggest problem that I have with the government or the country at the moment. We should not be, I would never send my child, which is the most important thing in life to me, to a school or to a place where I feel that she's being belittled. So my question is, and I know lots of people will burn me for this, but this is the truth. Why are our schools not of a standard or caliber that we feel safe to send our children with our own cultural people? I mean, previously, I'm an Indian person, and I only went to an Indian school previously because it was during apartheid. But I didn't see myself getting a lower education or less of an education than a white student that was 3-4 streets down the road. Yes, they may have had more sports equipment. Yes, they may have had more amenities or more stuff at school. But my teacher was just as qualified, if not better, to give me the education that they could, because culturally they could see and align their culture with mine because we were the same. That's not racism, that's just understanding our culture.
All right, Jock, I hear you, but we can do both. We can improve the quality of schools and teaching in townships and other areas, as well as integrate. It's all about integration and building this nation that we hold ourselves to be. Let me take a call from Rex in Leidenburg. Good morning to you, Rex.
Yes, hi. I'm going to cover a lot of ground very quickly.
Yes.
My definition of racism is that it's conditioning that politicians turn into a political racket, full stop. Racism has to be a problem with the mind. Until you understand how the mind works, you will never, ever, ever solve a problem. And the whole problem with the debate at the moment is trying to fix other people. Now, all the textbooks and all the scriptures will tell you cannot fix other people. Now, if you accept that you cannot fix other people, where do you take the debate from there? So my solution to the racial problem is just plain, simple, good governance. Success breeds success. Everybody wants to be part of a success. Nobody wants to be part of a failure. When things are falling apart, everybody plays the race card. They're all pointing fingers at each other. and it just goes round and round in circles. Now, if you're still hell-bent on fixing white people or anybody, then bring somebody on radio tomorrow that you fixed recently. You cannot do it. So where do you take the debate? Now, I've got hold of Professor Southall and this other woman, what's her name, Noel Williams or something, Oakley Smith.
Yeah.
And I've challenged them. And then they just cut me off. And a Cuban doctor told me that white people in this country need psychiatrists more than they need doctors. A Cuban doctor told me that. Well, that's a typical example of some outsider comes in, he sees the obvious and he states the obvious as he sees it. That Cuban doctor is never going to solve the problem because you cannot fix other people.
All right, Rex.
And this whole racial debate is centered around fixing other people, and it is doomed to failure.
I've heard you. Thank you so much. That's Rex out in Leidenberg there. Let's switch tack a little bit. Let's talk about the U.S. election. That's the other big story of the day. Pastor Williams in Tshwane, you want to address that issue. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Simelane. I hope you are well.
I'm very well, thank you.
FM listeners. I was in the U.S. in the past 6 months, and I want to tell you the feeling of most of the African people, you know. I can tell you most of the African people, they don't wish Trump to win because of his, migration policies. Remember, he has been saying that once he wins, then he's going to check out all the, the foreigners there, especially, I don't know whether he's targeting Africans, but I can tell you that most of the African people, they wish Kamara can take the day.
Yeah. So that whole issue of him saying he will carry out the biggest, deportation in history is really what concerns the people you were interacting with.
Absolutely. That's the feeling of the people. They don't want him to win, and because you know that there are some people there that are living illegally. There are those that of course have got papers, but maybe they are not doing clean jobs, know. So, yeah, the feeling, and, looking at how Africa, as the whole is, in terms of unemployment and all that, many of African guys, are surviving in America,
right.
with all the small kind of jobs that they do.
Pastor Williams.
So now it's another feeling. So I'm just hoping for them that Kamara takes the day as well.
Let's see how it unfolds. Pastor Williams out in Tshwane talking about the U.S. election. In fact, let me play one or two voice notes about that theme.
Oh, my God.
Good morning. Thank you so much for an incredible show. It's honestly, it's unbelievable to think that we are in 2024, 30 years after democracy, and teachers cannot greet fellow teachers because they don't know whether they are cleaning staff or teachers. What difference does that make? It is just so disheartening, and as you said, it's a reflection of it's unfortunately a reflection of the community around them. What are they teaching the children? What are they teaching? What examples are they setting? It's Carrie from Hillcrest.
Yeah, thank you for that, Carrie. It really is about that, schools being a microcosm of society. If we get to know and understand one another, perhaps that will start to translate at the school level. Let's speak to Wonga in Matatiele. Good morning to you, Wonga. You want to talk to me about municipalities. What about municipalities?
Good morning, Thulas, and good morning to SFM listeners. Thulas, let me start by applauding the action that has been taken by MEC Williams regarding Alfred Nzo District Municipality, whereby he has managed to put in an acting or a middleman whom I will call the acting municipal manager. After, I think, a month ago, I've called in regarding the corruption that is there. Fortunately enough, it has little bit yielded the results. The deputy CFO has been suspended, but the big question that I have been raising and asking, I want to know, when can you call Mr. Vukile Mhlelembana, the mayor of that district, to come to your show and then answer about the corruption levels that are taking place there. And also, he must also come in and tell us about the extract on the payment papers where the CFO is alleged to have paid herself an amount of 6 million rand under legal fees. And when they somersault and then respond, when you want to know what is happening, they said, no, the municipality was attached, so the CFO was saving the municipality. So this money is what belongs to her. So it's a lot of funny shenanigans.
Yeah. Wanga, I appreciate you raising these issues at that level of detail because obviously, we can't cover every portion of the country, but we depend on you to raise issues that are, a burning platform for you where you are. So are you saying that the situation in Alfred Nzo is beginning to get some attention?
Is deadly dire. And the CFO at this particular transaction, as per the paper, she was acting as the municipal manager and the CFO, and this funny transaction of 6 million, which appears to be paid under legal fees, it's on her name. She's not a legal practitioner for that municipality, but a CFO. So I think the mayor of William Selemane must come up and then respond to these allegations, and then try to put people of Alfred Nzo at ease.
I love it. Thank you for that. That's Wonga in Matatiele. I love the directness and the access that, this medium provides, that these questions can be asked directly. The question is out there. Wonga wants to know about the governance in Alfred Nzo municipality and also that whole issue of active citizenry. Study these reports that come through from the municipality. Highlight what doesn't make sense to you. Ask the questions and seek the answers. Absolutely spot on there from Wonga in Matatiele. At 8:30, let's check in with Ondela Mbana with the latest news headlines.
Thank you. Thulas news headlines at 8:30. 2 suspects have been arrested for kidnapping and robbing a German tourist in Graskop, Mpumalanga. Police say that the incident happened shortly after the German man withdrew money from an ATM at a petrol station in the area yesterday. Some suspected illegal miners are feared dead and others still trapped in mine shafts in Orkney and Stilfontein in the northwest. And one of the most uncertain U.S. presidential elections in recent times is reaching a climax with polls about to open. Tens of millions of early ballots have already been cast. A full update for those at the top of the hour.
Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still slowly coming out of Pretoria North. It's been one of our top stories. A fatal crash on Paul Kruger between Ballabong Junction and Ruckle de Beer. There's delays both ways. It's particularly heavy coming out of the north, off Ruckle de Beer, all the way through the junction, down towards Eskia, Pathlali, Lavender Road through the port, taking a bit of a hammering with traffic either being held up or diverted away from a crash scene. The N14, a collision before Jean Avenue. If you're on your way to Pretoria, that's slow. Joburg's N1 heavy from Rivonia down to the Winnie Mandela off-ramp. Still no traffic lights here. The R21's pretty heavy, backed up today as well. Leaving the airport, there's that roadwork just north of the Bosfontein exit, and it is heavy all the way back to the Benoni off-ramp. A lot of traffic ducking off and taking the high road towards Pretoria Road, causing a delay as well. Durban, in the rain, we've seen lots of bumps and shunts and crashes, dings and dents. Make sure you're not a victim of that. Just take it easy, increase following distances, and slow down. There's been a lot of rain, a bit of flooding, some surface water, all very treacherous. Just waiting for those that are going too hard and too fast. So take it easy. M4 with some flooding, Southern Freeway, that's pretty heavily back into the CBD. Richmond Road from Cloudrider up into Marion Hill on your way to Pinetown remains busy. And nearly a crash at Town Hill, plus now a breakdown. Just means a backlog of truck traffic, particularly bad coming in from the Hilton side. Cape Town, pressure traffic on the N1 this morning. We warned it looks like a busy Tuesday. N1 still at Plattercliff Road all the way through to City Centre. N2 is at Robert Sebukwe towards the Hospital Bend there. It's also a crash at Lisbeth Parkway, just getting it away. And the N7 North is very heavy this morning from Goodwood, big queues up towards the Bosmansdam off-ramp. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So Zai, we're still talking about Richards Bay coming up against Orlando Pirates, and the coach there, Brendan Truter, is effecting something of a shake-up to the starting lineup.
I know, all eyes on Brendan Truter, so I don't know if he's going to be a bit of a tactical genius tonight or Thulas, will he be reshuffling the deck chairs like they did on the Titanic? We'll have to wait and see. So, Pirates versus the Rich Boys. Look out for that encounter, which you can catch live, by the way, on SABC Sport. But let's go to the Richards Bay coach, Brandon Truter, having his work cut out for him, facing a quick turnaround after his team's Carling knockout semi-final win over Cape Town City with just 72 hours before they take on a well-rested Orlando Pirates. Truter admitting he's feeling the pressure. He's considering a few lineup changes, especially with Keegan Allen's injury and Langalihle Mhlongo's suspension. Despite viewing Pirates as title contenders, Truter isn't ruling out a surprise from his young squad.
With the loss against Polokwane from Sundowns, it put us right in the either challenges or genuine contenders about dethroning Sundowns. So the belief is there. It's going to be tough in terms of quality, in terms of being away from home, in terms of the fatigue, in terms of the red card, in terms of the injuries. We make no mistake about it. But something about the youngsters, they welcome this challenge. And once you put this in front of the youngster, you either swing, sink, or swim. But in this case, they say today that they are brave, and that's what we like. There's lots of energy and hard work. You can't fault it, and you can go with that.
Staying on the continent, the Zambian Football Association President Andrew Kamanga has clarified that the move by the Council of Southern African Football Association COSAFA countries to support the removal of languages in the voting of the FIFA Council members will not affect their chances. Kamanga, who is set to raise his hand again for a place in the FIFA Council in the next CAF elections in March next year, explains how his chances were affected by the issue of the languages in the 2021 elections.
No, I don't think so, because remember the last election in 2021, I actually stood for the FIFA Council, and based on that rule, the moment President Mosepe was elected, I was automatically disqualified. So this time round, because it's open, I could put my name forward despite having President Mosepe there. So I think it's bringing an element of fairness and also increasing the level of competition. So we will see from the nominations of those who come how this equation is going to pan out.
That's when Patrice Motsepe became CAF president in 2021. There couldn't be 5 English-speaking members in the FIFA Council and 3 coming from COSAFA. Tennis action, the world number 1, Aryna Sabalenka, becoming the first player to progress into the last 4 of the WTA finals with a straight sets win over Jasmine Paolini in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Sabalenka, who previously defeated Zhang Qiwen, secured her semi-final with a 6-3, 7-5 victory, controlling the game early with a 4-love lead in the first set. Paolini fought back in the second, but Sabalenka held firm to win the match after a 90-minute battle, with her place in the semis confirmed. Sabalenka will face Elena Rybakina, that's tomorrow, in her final group match. And finally, athletics, Botswana sprint sensation Letsile Tebogo has been named a finalist for the prestigious Male Track Athlete of the Year by World Athletics. Now, he clinched the 200-meter gold at the Paris Olympics, and he will go up against Norway's 5,000-meter champion Jakob Ingebrigtsen for the top honor. Surprisingly, the American Noah Lyles, the 100-meter Olympic champion, didn't make the final cut despite quite a thrilling season. Now, the award also includes female finalists, with the Olympic 100-meter winner Julian Alfred of St. Lucia competing against the 400-meter hurdles record holder Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. Fans can vote until the 10th of November. That's a wrap of your sport on the morning brief. We'll have more for you around 12:30 with John Henniker. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again, Dowling. Let's start with the news of the resignation of the former National Treasury Director General Dondo Mokgajane from all of his positions on boards as well as the Moti Group. What is he saying? What reasons is he citing?
That's right, Tula. So Tondo Mokgojane really under the spotlight, being accused of corruption. According to an affidavit submitted by the former chair of the VBS Mutual Bank, Chifiwa Matodzi, Mokgojane accepted a 1 million bribe to retract a letter that instructed municipalities to stop depositing funds with the bank. Now, VBS illegally solicited billions of rands from local municipalities, making any instruction to stop this practice a big risk for the bank. Now, while Mokgojane has denied the allegations, he's decided to resign from a number of his professional roles as he suffers a reputational blow, stepping down as CEO of the Moti Group and resigning as the chair of the Government Employee Pension Fund. The move comes days after Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana had vowed to deal with the reputational risk associated with the allegations against Mokgojane. Now, Mokgojane's resignation spares the minister from having to make such a decision. Godongwana has welcomed the move, wishing Mokgojane well with his future endeavors.
All right, let's talk about, this used to be the buzzword, right? Rating agencies. Yes. That phrase, we used to talk about them a lot. One of them is commenting on South Africa, Fitch Ratings. They like the medium-term budget policy statement.
That's right, Thulas. And it seems like we've forgotten about these ratings agencies, as they've kept the ratings pretty unchanged for some time. So Fitch Ratings has given South Africa somewhat of a positive nod, suggesting it may upgrade the country's credit outlook if the government stays on track with its debt stabilization plan. This plan was further outlined in last week's mid-term budget, which projects state debt to peak at 75.5% of GDP by March 2026, while Fitch's debt forecast is higher than the government's, standing at 76.9% by March 2027. Now, Fitch says their outlook incorporates assumptions of transfers to struggling state-owned logistics firm Transnet. This despite Finman Enoch Godongwana making it clear that the tap has run dry when it comes to SOE bailouts. Now, in a statement, the ratings agency said if South Africa's economy performs better than expected, it may revise the nation's credit outlook. The other key factors influencing the credit outlook include the government's ability to follow the debt stabilization plan, the anticipated increase in infrastructure investment, as well as government's ability to maintain stable energy supply. In its last report released in September, Fitch kept South Africa's credit rating unchanged. The rating remains at BB-, 3 levels below investment grade. The outlook in the meantime is stable.
All right, lastly, Ndauling, with the focus being on the U.S. election, what kind of a trading day can we expect here at home and in other parts of the world?
That's right, with not much happening on the local front and that focus being on U.S. elections, the JSE could be in for a mixed start. There's just a lot of jitters around the election weighing on equities today, this morning. So we'll see a lot of traders holding back on making bets on riskier assets. We're also seeing that play out in the currency front, where the election and the jitters around the election is weighing on the dollar. That weakness working in the benefit of the rand as it trades near the 1750 mark to the greenback. And then over in Wall Street, futures are flat as traders, of course, take a wait and see approach as U.S. citizens prepare to take to the polls today. While volatility is the name of the game for most markets, Asian stocks are having a fairly good day, somewhat shrugging off concerns around that all-important election. They are on track to end the day off in the green as investors anticipate and focus more on the fiscal measures that are set to come out this week from Chinese officials, which would then boost Beijing's economy.
Ndauling Lichela, thank you for that. That's Ndauling there. She's been keeping you updated with all things to do with the economy, business and the markets here at home and around the world for the past 3 hours here on The Morning Brief.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
My name is Jabu Mahlangu, aka Shuffle the Pack, aka 1 Hour Swing. I start my day with a short prayer. I give hugs to my kids. I'm very playful. I love all the genre, but Kwaito is number one. Kwaito is our culture. About the late Mandoza, about the late Mapaputsi, and I could relate. And it's in us focus. Ivory Coast for me, it was a beautiful country. I know Utabanye Batandes in Indabo, Mauritius, Nana. This window is a love. SABC Sport, this is the main one. Walking our Manyama channel as because of SABC.
Catch Jabu Shuffle Mahlangu unpacking the beautiful game in the lingo you love on match days. Live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Friday.
VS Gaming Weekly is back on your screen, bigger and better with more exhilaration. Draw near as we shine a spotlight on the world of gaming to bring you everything from gaming news, the latest tech, tournaments, players' profiles, and celebrity interviews. Get the latest in gaming news and trends, as well as tips and tricks from some of South Africa's favorite pro gamers. Witness Telkom VS Gaming Weekly every Friday at 2 p.m. on SABC1, with repeats every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on SABC2. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Let's quickly take one or two of your voice notes before we go to the next story. The topic around the report and investigation around the Pretoria High School for Girls and issues of racism and race relations dominating this morning.
Good morning, Mungo Nomoshe. With reference to the subject on that school you're discussing today, I would like people to go through a document, the 1979 Sanokran Plan, and then you will understand that this is actually brain sickness of certain people. When we are talking of the Sanokran Plan, we are not talking about white on black, but on tribal supremacy. So I don't think these people are normal enough. There's some certain insanity in them. They need thorough psychological help. Thank you, Thulas.
All right, thank you for that. Let's go on to Mike in Newlands. Good morning to you, Mike.
I think let's just step back for a second. Is the Gauteng Education Department really expecting us to believe that teachers go to the school and they don't know a cleaner from a teacher? It is an absolute nonsense. The question I'm asking myself is this, Thulasizwe. If the Tavu Mbeki Foundation found no racism, an independent report found no racism, why are we still, Pretoria Girls High School, still in the headlines? Because we still have schools with toilets and rivers with no bridges which kids have to cross. And the answer is a simple one. Very soon what is going to happen, and mark my words, here it comes. We're going to have a transformation consultant. It's probably called the Matthew Gumede School of Leadership. They're going to come into the school. They're going to have a budget of 300 million rand, which, by the way, is our money. And that budget is going to spend on the people working for this Gumede School of Leadership. And they're going to come into the school and they're going to come up with some sort of plan to de-racialize it, or whatever they want to call it. And then they will then charge back their fees, let's say 100,000 rand, back to the Gauteng Department of Education, and everybody gets to split the money. And finally,
You know, on this particular committee, you'll be unsurprised to find out that the directors are all ANC members in one way or other. So what we're looking at here is a major scam.
Which panel? The one that was investigating?
So the Matthew Ginewi School of Leadership is made up of ANC members, and they are going to get kickbacks from going into schools where no racism exists and coming in with some false programs. This comes down to money. Just sit and wait and watch. This cannot be going on in our country. This racism does. I won't say it doesn't exist, but when it comes down to the ANC, it comes down to money.
Yeah,
I mean, there is something. I smell a big ANC rat here. And I promise you, in a month's time, I'll be telling you exactly how that I'm right.
Okay, let's see how it unfolds. Thanks for that. That's Mike in Newlands there. Let me take one more voice note on the same topic.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. This is GS Mospacing. You know, this thing of greeting, especially amongst us racists, a white person will come into the office looking for this other white person, and they don't greet you, and they go straight to that person's office only to find that they are not there. Next thing, they come and talk to me. You know what? Subscriber unavailable. That's what I do. I don't talk to them until they greet me. And that's how it works, and that's how it rocks. But with my colleagues, we greet each other. Thank you. GS Mospacing.
Oh, GS Mospacing. I like that, subscriber unavailable. But I think the point is just reaching out and trying to understand one another. And it cuts both ways, I think. We can have that understanding of how to relate better with one another. But I mean, if we build walls between ourselves, that doesn't happen. Mlamli in Gqeberha, good morning. You want to talk to me about the U.S. elections?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Yes. Two quick things. One, I don't understand this craze from the journalists about U.S. elections in relation to ourselves as South Africa. I really don't understand. Because while it may partly affect us, it's really not our problem. That's one thing. However, there's this belief that everybody should concentrate on U.S. as if U.S. is a solution to our problems. However, people have a right in this country to think the way they want to think. But two quick things I want to address. This racism thing. You know, Thulasizwe, it can't be correct for some people in this country to behave as if there's no racism in South Africa. Whatever the outcomes and the processes that may have been followed correctly or wrongly, the reality is that we have a challenge of racism in South Africa.
Yeah.
And we cannot deny that.
Sure.
These people like Mike, who always has this racist connotation every time he calls. And he hates everything about Africans. Everything. He hates everything about Africans. And he always makes this scapegoat about African National Congress when he calls.
Yeah, but we can't impute that he hates everything about Africans, Mlamli.
Listen to him.
Whatever he says about the African National Congress, that's a political party, but we can't assume that he has certain attitudes about Africans in general.
Yes, he has.
Okay.
Can you listen to me a bit? I want to explain why. Yes, he has. And he's not the only one anyway. Yes, he has. Thulasizwe, one, African National Congress, with all its weaknesses, always in its majority, it's African people. So you cannot divorce Africans from the African National Congress. And the hater of Africans, when he displays what Mike has been displaying about the Africans through African National Congress. And I'm not saying here African National Congress is the best party. This is not what I'm saying.
All right.
I'm picking up the hatred he has for Africans.
All right, Mlamli.
In every aspect.
I've got to go. I've got to go. I've heard you. Thank you. That's Mlamli out in Gqeberha there.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Junction 3 North is quite slow this morning, just queuing pressure up through Alex and passing Limbro Park. Delays right up into the Buccleuch interchange area. Once you get through that, join the N1 going slow between Ravonia and the William Mandela off-ramp. Still no traffic lights at that off-ramp for the longest time. Crashes around Pretoria. N1 North going up to Rigel. That's pretty heavy. Backing a queue down to Borta Avenue. Southbound there's also a crash around the R21 around those roadworks. They're coming through from Rigel Avenue. That's slow, so both ways under quite a bit of pressure there. Durban has been a wet morning, flooding and surface water, real problems, lots of bumps and shunts in the wet and slippery conditions, so just take it easy, give yourself extra time to get through. The M4 is still queuing up. You've got roadworks on the embankment, the closure of Brook Street, the extension of the M4 around China Mall, so from Congella, that's all still very heavily delayed. Cape Town, we warned about this earlier, a really busy morning in the traffic, particularly on the highway, some big volumes this Tuesday. N1 inbound from Plattekloof to the city centre, N2 from the airport through to Hospital Bend, passing a crash near Lisbeth Parkway as well. The N7 stays really busy this time of morning from Goodwood's Four-Tracker Road right up to Bosmansdam Road, and just on Bosmansdam Road around Edgemead Drive, there's a collision there, so if you're coming out of Edgemead and Bortasack, both of those routes are still quite busy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The South African government has implemented economic reforms to address challenges in energy, logistics, and the visa regime. State-owned entities like Eskom and Transnet are driving economic growth and job creation. Working with business, government has managed to transform energy supply, enabling private investment in electricity generation. We have had more than 200 days with no load shedding, enabling our economy to grow. Transnet has reduced port congestion, allowing South Africa to benefit from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, building and transforming the economy. A message brought to you by Government Communications.
Outsurance definitely understands the nature of our business. Being properly insured is extremely important to the success of our business.
They come to the party very quickly, resolve things.
Action speak much louder than words. Outsurance have shown us nothing but action.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Lina Lagakit from Pokekana. I'm from Mamelodi Sundowns captain. I'm a sports analyst at SABC Sport. When I'm home, I try by all means to practice cooking. My favorite home cooked meal, I'll go for pap and masonja because I can prepare that with easy. What do I normally get up to when I get a moment to myself? I would easily, play my guitar. I try to practice a lot of Tracy Chapman. My favorite foreign language is French. So if I didn't play football, I think I was gonna be a baseball player. What do I like about SABC Sport is the fact that we given an opportunity to educate.
Catch the exciting Diski analysis by Sombo Long Range Gagana on Match Days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's briefly return to our coverage of the U.S. election. Something unique has been happening in the area of Dixville Notch in New Hampshire, which, prides itself in being, quote-unquote, first in the nation. So the voting has taken place there, and the outcome, 3-3. 3 for Trump, 3 for Harris. So I guess it signals just how tight this race is. Let's bring into the conversation Gideon Chitanga, who is the research associate at the African Center for the Study of the U.S. at Wits University. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of just how tight the race is, Gideon, but let's start with, there's a question that's been asked quite consistently. Why do we as South Africans, as Africans, even care about this election?
So obviously, the U.S. is by far one of the biggest economies in the world. Historically, it has had important roles in global security. South Africa is a key trading partner with the U.S. The policies that emerge out of its new leadership emanating from the electoral process are very important. They do not only shape the continent or influence
state behavior and the behavior of other critical actors in the continent, but also close ties with South Africa can be at risk or can improve significantly because of the choices that the leaders will make. Relations between South Africa and the US are very important in terms of trade, policy, diplomacy, and so on. So it is important for us to pay attention, to be able to predict, to forecast, and to watch what comes out, because it will affect us whether we want it, we like it or not.
And I suppose, Gideon, part of the question is informed by a sense that none of these two candidates, and I think there was a reading from Sipho Mantula a bit earlier on, none of these two candidates are particularly enthusiastic about the African continent and how the U.S. relates with the continent.
Yeah, it's actually beyond the two candidates. I think there has been a major debate in the context of Africa-China relations. The fact that although the U.S. is such a big player, the number one global player, if you like, relations with African countries have not been very important beyond the humanitarian aspects addressing conflict and the geopolitical security issues and interests of the U.S. So most people will say the U.S. policy approach towards Africa is too securitized and does not focus or is not informed or grounded in the interests of African countries and African citizens per se. So I think to that extent, yes, we have a point. But we expect this to change because of the changing geopolitical context. Other countries are demonstrating interest and desire to work closely with the African continent, with South Africa and other countries, to cooperate, to change the structure of global relations, to recognize and understand that Africans have agents and interests of their own, and any type of partnership that can emerge in the context of broader relations should pay close attention to that. We see an increase in including by the U.S., in a desire and interest to engage African countries. We have heard the talk of mutually beneficial relations. The U.S. is now trying to play big in some countries in Central Africa. The Lobido Corridor is such a huge investment initiative that might uplift the covered countries, Zambia, Angola, and so on, but also has important implications for us.
Right.
There is talk of investment in energy and so forth. I think these things are very key, and as we go forward, as we move forward, we'll need to pay attention to what the new leadership in the U.S. will do.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's Gideon Chitanga, who is the research associate at the African Center for the Study of the U.S. at Wits University, bringing us to 9 a.m., and that's how we come to the end of today's edition of The Morning Brief. News coming up in just a moment. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
Thank you, Thulasizwe. The team top stories at 9 suspects arrested for kidnapping in Mpumalanga, and update on illegal miners trapped in shafts in Stilfontein. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana, and a very good morning. 2 suspects have been arrested for kidnapping and robbing a German tourist in Graskop, Mpumalanga. Police say that the incident happened shortly after the German men withdrew money from an ATM at a petrol station in the area yesterday. Provincial Police spokesperson Donald Mdluli says a member of the public tipped officers about the incident. Police then located the suspect's rented vehicle and rescued the tourist who had injuries. Police also suspect that the arrested men have been involved in other criminal activities in the area. Some suspected illegal miners are feared dead and others still trapped in mine shafts in Orkney and Stilfontein in the northwest. Scores of suspected illegal miners have already resurfaced from the mine shafts. One of them, who has managed to evade arrest, says thousands of people are trapped underground without food or water. Provincial Police spokesperson Sabata Mukhabone says illegal mining is a serious crime.
We are dealing with criminal activity here, and those that are committing crimes, they will be dealt with accordingly, and then they will be processed according to the law, because remember, South Africa is a constitutional democracy and we cannot allow lawlessness in our country. And we must also emphasize the fact that we are not aware about the people that are actually trapped underground, because I'm not sure what is it when they say that people are trapped underground, because we have what we call Minecraft Combating Forum. That is the structure that is actually dealing with this particular matter, where we have quite a number of stakeholders. If indeed there was something like people had been trapped underground, I think that should have been reported accordingly.
Gauteng Finance MEC Lebogang Maile has conceded that not enough is being done to deal with non-compliant owners of spaza shops. He says law enforcement should be held accountable for the continuing lawlessness. This follows the death of a 10-year-old girl in Alexandra, northern Johannesburg, after allegedly consuming snacks from a local spaza shop. Maile was speaking when he visited the bereaved family yesterday.
Any death, whether of a child or human being, it's devastating, and we are devastated, and that's why we should not just talk about these things, and that's why I'm saying the law enforcement agencies must be held accountable. We need to get numbers. How many are you visiting? Are you inspecting? What are you finding?
One of the most uncertain U.S. presidential elections in recent times is reaching a climax, with polls about to open. Tens of millions of early ballots have already been cast, but with opinion polls deadlocked, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have been making their final appeals to undecided Americans. Harris has held her final rally in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, the biggest swing state that could determine the election outcome.
We are optimistic and we are excited about what we can do together. And we know it is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America.
And Trump is due to hold his final campaign rally in Grand Rapids in Michigan. Earlier in Pittsburgh, he blamed Harris for America's problems.
Kamala Harris has delivered soaring prices and economic anguish at home, war and chaos abroad, and nation-destroying invasion on our southern border like nobody's ever seen before. She's actually a disaster. My message to Americans tonight is simple. We do not have to live this way. We don't. We don't. And we won't. We won't.
Recapping the top story, 2 suspects have been arrested for kidnapping and robbing a German tourist in Graskop, Mpumalanga. Police say that the incident happened shortly after the German man withdrew money from an ATM at a petrol station in the area yesterday. I am Onde Lambana for SAFM News, headlines at 9:30.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today. SMS car to 43187.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
For 120 years, Rhodes University has shaped history. From Sir George Corey's pioneering 62 conversations capturing the early history of the Eastern Cape, to the first email to be sent in South Africa, and now leading the way in nanotechnology. Rhodes University is more than an educational institution. We are a legacy in motion. Be part of the evolving legacy. Rhodes University, where leaders learn.
The South African government has implemented economic reforms to address challenges in energy, logistics, and the visa regime. The national rail policy is aimed at modernizing the rail sector, and the reduction of water use license backlogs has attracted 24.4 billion rands in investment. The recently gazetted visa system regime will attract critical skills and investment whilst boosting tourism to ignite the economy and enable job creation. These reforms demonstrate considerable progress in transforming South Africa's economy and addressing the binding constraints on growth. Building and transforming the economy. A message brought to you by Government Communications.
47-year-old Abner loves Outsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance made for older cars. For his 2006 Opel Corsa Utility 1.4, he only pays 253 Rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater you want to use. Top this up with a motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rand. SMS car to 43187. That's car to 43187 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Talking Point with Kathy Mosasana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Are you happy? Yes, you're all looking happy. And we all are happy sometimes. What if you ate chocolate with the foil? You would enjoy the chocolate, but periodically have to spit out the foil, right? Similarly, our happiness is unnecessarily intercepted by bouts of sorrow. Wouldn't it be great if we could just be happy without the intervening pain? So, where is happiness? You believe it's out there in the world, right? But consider this. You take a non-stop flight Mumbai to New York, and as you exit the terminal building there, a fellow passenger lights up a cigarette. He is happy, but a non-smoker walks away. The same object gives immense pleasure to one person, intense displeasure to another. So is happiness in the object? Then where is it? Think. As long as the desire for the cigarette was unfulfilled, the mind was agitated, unhappy. The moment the desire got fulfilled, the agitation ceased, you're happy. So is happiness in the mind and not in the object? Are we chasing a mirage all our lives when the oasis is elsewhere? Where do we seek happiness? The world is agog with objects, and you are enticed to want more, buy more. Do you succumb and sink in the quicksand of desire, or do you stand up and opt for happiness? How do you reduce desires? You can't wish them away. The only way is to pick a higher desire. As a child, you were obsessed with toys, right? Do you hanker for them down? Of course not. Did you at any stage take a decision to give up desires for toys? No. Then how did they go? You just grew to more exciting stuff. What is the cause of desire? Where does it come from? When do you feel hungry? When your stomach is empty. If you've just eaten all the goodies outside, you won't even think of food. You don't need objects of the world to fill you. You only need knowledge of your fullness. Gain knowledge of your fullness, and your life will change. Upgrade your desires. For how long will you remain in the kindergarten of life, oblivious to the subtler joys you are heir to? Feel one with the family, and when anyone does well, you rejoice. Think of adding value to others. Work to make others happy. Only then will you truly be happy.
Jaya Rao, one of the most powerful speakers on Indian philosophy there, talking about upgrading your desires. Yeah, a really, really powerful way to open up the show this morning as we get things going here on The Talking Point and having conversations that move us as a society. I'm Kathy Mosasana and I'm with you until midday. Coming up on the show today, it is a Tuesday, so actually, before I get into the second hour of the show, we'll open it up with the open line, as we always do. Your National Roundtable, of course, it's your opportunity to raise whatever matters of national interest that you want to put on the agenda. So I'll be taking your calls on 086 086-000-2032. That's 086-000-2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line 0614-104-107. So those are the platforms you can use to, of course, be part of the national conversation. So coming up then in the second hour of the show, we'll be talking finance with Brian Hirsch. And today we're going to be focusing on medical aids and gap cover. We know that 2025 is just around the corner, so many healthcare providers have started now telling their members about the contribution increases and also their benefit covers going into the new year. So we're going to have a conversation about that. And the one thing that we cannot ignore is the increasing rate, the skyrocketing cost of medical insurance, medical aids in this country. It's the one cost that increases at almost double the price of inflation on a year-on-year basis, meaning that more and more it becomes simply inaccessible for the majority of South Africans in this country. So a conversation like this in many respects leaves one to go back to the NHI and the need for a national health insurance of national and universal health coverage of sort. Yes, we can debate what that needs to look like in the context of South Africa, but certainly we can't afford a situation where only a small group of people are able to access healthcare, because for even those that are on medical aid, the costs are simply becoming incredibly expensive. So Brian is going to be unpacking some of those details for us, and hopefully also have some advice in terms of what we can be doing to reduce healthcare costs, especially if you are already on private medical aid. And then the final hour of the show will turn the spotlight on the Monitoring and Evaluation Department, and in particular look at the oversight that this department has been carrying out on the whole of government, because their job is to really make sure that government departments are running their programs in line with the timelines and deadlines that have been set. They're the ones that are supposed to be reporting on the feedback, where are the challenges, helping to streamline things. So we'll be then in conversation with the Deputy Minister in the Presidency responsible for planning, monitoring and evaluation. That's coming up in the final hour of the show. Of course, we'll also ask him about the conversation that has been taking place in Parliament for the establishment of a committee that specifically will have oversight over the presidency, because as things stand, the presidency ultimately reports to itself, right? So, there've been big questions around how to bring in that accountability of the presidency. This is the presidency department within the framework of government. So we'll have a look at that, and then we'll wrap things up with a preview on the U.S. elections. Of course, it's a big day for the United States of America. They go to the polls today. It's already the 5th in South Africa. Very soon it will be, the 5th overnight in the U.S. And so it's the big voting day for them. We'll keep a close eye on those elections too. So that's what you can expect coming up on the show in the next 3 hours. As always, I'm looking forward to being in conversation with you. 086-000-2032 is the number to dial to put your matters of national interest on the agenda. And then on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614-104-107. So then, I'll take your calls right after this break.
My name is Manola Motsuba. I'm 17. My school was far from home and my parents would spend large amounts on transport. That's why they moved me to UCT Online High School, and it's been amazing. With savings on transport and uniforms, I was able to get ahead and stay ahead. Visit uctonlinehighschool.com to learn more. Applications close 29 November 2024. Channel 8 detected, recharged and flourishing you on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As Coach Alicia Drummond offers practical steps to a less is more lifestyle. HR specialist Uthando Mabelane shares key skills to revitalize your career. Plus, overnight oats is the perfect after-gym recharger. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Ever tried to paint a wall with only a brush? Or hung a picture on just a nail and a press? The contestants on My Design Rules will be the first to tell you good design starts with the right tools. Tune in to My Design Rules every Sunday at 7 p.m. on SABC3 and stand a chance to win a weekend away in the winning apartment. From beginner projects to expert builds, Buco has the tools and materials you need to get the job done. Ready to kickstart your next DIY project? Begin with Buco.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
I categorically deny I've never taken any money from anybody. I've served this country for 23 years. The last 5 years was as DG of National Treasury. My record is very clear in terms of how I ran the department and how I conducted business during my term as DG and during my term as a public servant over the last 23 years. I've always been a proud public servant. I'm proud of my clean record. I've served with honesty, loyalty, distinction, and with all the humility in the way I conducted my business. My reputation has been put in question currently. Some false allegations have been made by a convicted felon, and I categorically deny any wrongdoing. I fully understand the consequences of these allegations. I'm humbly going to step down from all boards that I currently sit on.
They fell down just like dominoes. They fell down just like dominoes. They fell down just like dominoes. They fell.
Yeah, how's that? Dondu Morajani, just the latest high-profile individual to resign from, his positions, effectively falling on his sword, right? And it's following the allegations of him having received a 1 million rand bribe while he was the Director General of the National Treasury, and all of it linked to the VBS scandal. So he says he'll be taking time, a sabbatical, to spend time with his family and to write a book. I tell you what, we'll all be waiting to hear what he has to say in terms of his experiences, but hopefully he also can take us into his confidence around these allegations that have been made against him. Okay, let me go to the open line then. In Matlosana, Atuka, good morning.
Good morning, FTC, and good morning to the listeners of SAFM.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, I want to talk about the U.S. elections, but first, I owe our IEC an apology.
Okay.
I was disappointed with how they handled the elections last time, but compared to what goes on in the states during elections, how they just have rules that just don't make sense,